Senator. Making us run late, I see you. Ready? Bring this meeting in order of Amador County Board of Supervisors. We just came out of closed session. Confidential minutes were approved, and we made 2A from the addendum. Conference with legal counsel, the claim was approved. Would mind standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Over the weekend, we had a council member out of Plymouth, Valerie Kleinfelter. If you wouldn't mind, 30 seconds of a moment of silence. Thank you. Public matters not on the agenda. Discussion items only. No action will be taken. Any person may address the board at this time upon any subject within the jurisdiction of Amador County Board of Supervisors. However, any matter that requires action may be referred to staff and/or committee for report and recommendation for possible action at a subsequent board meeting. Please note there's a 3-minute time limit. Anybody from Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay. Yes.
I waited a little bit to do this, but I think now's a good time to do it. I will not be seeking re-election in the next election coming up, so I have not pulled papers, and I made that decision quite a while ago. I thought I'd just formalize it now. I'm not done. I'm not done until the end of 2024, so if you think that that I'm just going to go out quietly, you're wrong. So anyway, that's it.
Thank you, Richard. Anybody else? Supervisors?
I don't think anyone who knows you would think you're gonna go quietly. It's just as a comment.
Okay. The agenda has been requested that 2E be presented before 2D and add addendum 1 to 2B1. And so looking for a motion of approval.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approval of the consent addendum. Anybody from the public like to say anything? Okay. Anybody from Zoom?
Not at this time.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
on the one item, the EID,
Yeah, we pulled that to 2B1.
yeah. When that comes up, I'm gonna recuse myself, because I have like a contractual item with EID.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking for a motion.
Move approval.
Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that's 5-0. On to regular agenda, administrative policy presentation from Senator Marie Alvarado Gill of a check received and secured funds for the Ridge Road project.
Good morning, Senator.
Hi, good morning. Senator Marie Alvarado Gill from Jackson. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. This is one of my favorite things of the job, is passing out money. So I just want to add a little anecdote to this. So Amador County welcomed me and my family about 4 years ago. We bought our forever home here in the mountains. And one of the first things that I heard from my neighbors was, be careful about the roads up here. You know, weather permitting, you can travel up country and see some of the most beautiful grounds. But some of my neighbors on Ridge Road were very concerned about natural disasters, and boy, did we feel it, the Amador fire, right? So for me, as one of my first acts in office was to ensure that we brought some funds, not only to protect the residents and the families here in Amador County, but to make our roads safer, so that everyone in California, around the world, that wants to come and visit Shenandoah Valley Wine, wants to come and play in our playgrounds, visit some of the most beautiful aspects of the Sierra foothills, can come here safely and enjoy. So it is my honor and my pleasure to come here and to present this check for $2,300,000 to the County of Amador for repairs and safety improvements along Upper Ridge Road. Thank you so much.
Feel kind of like we won the lottery.
If we can use the map, it'd be great. Trying to get the map. You're right about that.
You know, I only have so many.
That's what I was talking about.
Roads, one of our most important things in Amador County. Senator, I truly appreciate everything you've done. And on to the same item, item 2B, Administrative Agency, Presentation and Adoption of Resolution of Recognition and Appreciation of Senator Marie Alvarado Gill for her efforts in securing funds for repairs and safety improvements along Upper Ridge Road. I'm going to go ahead and read the resolution. Whereas Senator Marie Alvarado Gill heard concerns that Upper Ridge Road area of Amador County was in need of significant repair, and whereas Senator Alvarado Gill acquired and secured $2.3 million from the new state budget for repairs and safety improvements along Upper Ridge Road in Pine Grove, California. And whereas the investment of repairs and safety improvements along Upper Ridge Road will bring a multitude of benefits that include enhanced transportation efficiency, increased road safety, improved quality of life for the community without increasing taxes. And whereas the dedication of Senator Marie Alvarado Gill marks a new era for Amador County in vastly improving the infrastructure and improve the roads. Therefore, be here resolved that the Amador County Board of Supervisors does hereby adopt this resolution in recognition of appreciation, thanking Senator Marie Alvarado Gill for her efforts in securing the funds for the critical repairs and safety improvements along Ridge Road. Do I have a motion to approve that?
I'll move.
Second. That beat me.
Does anybody else want to say anything before we call for the vote?
Yeah, no, I just, I think it's really a big deal for the county because we have a lot of roads in bad shape, and Upper Ridge Road is really a critical artery for this county. So I'm sure it wasn't an easy job to get it done, but the senator did, and so I appreciate that and thank you for that. And I'm sure the residents will I appreciate it every time I drive up and down the Ridge Road, because it's starting to move, not in a good way, so.
Any other
Thank you.
supervisors?
I appreciate you, all of your actions, not just on this, but on everything. You've been very active in our community and very supportive, so thank you.
Yeah,
I'd like to say thank you.
we got a senator who knows where Amador County is. Even though it's not easy, well, she lives here. Thank you.
And it's very much appreciated, as Supervisor Forster has said, is that I've been watching your vote, and it's very much appreciated in everything you're doing for the county. It's wonderful to see. So I would like, now I got to
Yeah, you got to call for the question.
call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 5-0.
Another picture.
Another picture.
Senator, I did check, you're in Banks District. Yeah, just on the end.
As I'm retired, oops, come on, there we go. As I'm retired military, it's always hard for me. It's shake, take, and salute. Well,
Okay. Yeah.
Just want to thank our supervisors and the people of Amador County. It's been a pleasure to represent our community, and I look forward to continuing to do so. I also want to put a little plug in for my district representative, Dana Jorgensen, who has been with the county for decades. I felt very honored to be able to have him on my team. I'm his fifth member of the legislature, but he continues to represent our community well. We also are holding office hours here in Amador County as a representative of 13 counties. As you can imagine, that's a lot of land to cover, but we're committed to continue to have a presence here in Amador County. So I just want to thank Dana Jorgensen and acknowledge his commitment as well. Thank you.
I was amiss by not doing public comment. Does anybody have any public comment? Anybody on Zoom?
No, not at this time.
Okay. On to 2B1, which is the EID dam replacement. Request from El Dorado Irrigation District for a letter of support regarding a grant application for funds to replace Silver Lake Dam.
Should have somebody online from EID. Can you raise your hand?
Oh, please. Thank you. No.
I'm not seeing anybody.
Please raise your hand if you're from El Dorado Irrigation District, please.
Do you know if this is a time-sensitive request?
It is, yes.
I guess it's not that time-sensitive.
We could, this is our last meeting before that letter is due. So we could approve that, the letter, and ask them to come in to present what the plan is, if, at a separate meeting.
Okay,
I'd like to do that.
That's kind of backwards.
for that. Well, what else?
Well,
did we
you
do?
know, this is just, you know, we'll be getting more into the weeds later on, I'm assuming, when, you know, just like we've had to do with Pine Grove project and anything else, so we can at least get the money first and then get the details ironed out.
Somewhat the same attitude we had when we had to sue them the first time. his lack of respect to even show up, so.
Well, we don't know all the particulars either, so.
Okay, do we have any public comment on this item? Anybody else from Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay, it's back to the board. What is our thought process?
I'll move to approve the draft letter of support with the understanding that we're going to have someone from EID come and answer some specific questions regarding the construction project and how it might impact Amador residents.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Oh.
Okay. 3-1, with Supervisor Aneto accusing himself because of conflict of interest. Recusing, I said accusing.
I know.
Sorry about that. You're recused, not accused.
You got accused.
I accidentally accused you, sir. Okay, on to item 2C, presentation of Lieutenant Vanessa Melendez, of CDCR relative to the changes in operation of Pine Grove Camp.
Good morning.
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 Thank you so much for having us here so we can share some of the changes that Pine Grove has experienced in this year. I did bring some of my team members to kind of jump in to PowerPoint just because I am a firm believer that it takes a village and we are that village. So I always make it a point to include some members, some very important members of my team. It's only, and who's my, thank you so much. Thank you, Helen. So as many of you know, the Department of Juvenile Justice closed its doors June 30th. Well, let me introduce myself first. I am Lieutenant Vanessa Melendez. I work for the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, and I am currently assigned as the camp commander at Pine Grove Youth Conservation Camp. I was assisting with the transition from DJJ to DAI, Department of Adult Institutions, effective December of last year. So I've been involved with some of the changes. The camp mission with CDCR is fairly new to me, so I am still learning about it. Thanks to a lot of my counterparts, they've been assisting me through this journey. However, I am also very new to the community, so everyone has been very, very welcoming, and I'm very grateful to be here. Okay, back to the presentation. Can you go back just one more? Thank you. So as I mentioned, the Department of Juvenile Justice closed its doors June 30th, 2023, and however, Pine Grove remained open thanks to the Department of Juvenile Justice transitioning over in January of 2023. Some topics that we'll review is the criteria for placement, the referral and acceptance process, the firefighting program with CAL FIRE, the services and programs that we offer, and some of the case management. So for criteria and placement, I will turn it over to Correctional Counselor 2, Daniel Kirk.
Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Good morning. Daniel Kirk, for some of you who may know me, I sit on some commissions and committees with you guys over on the Tuolumne side. I am one of those few supervisors who also has a full-time job. So 16 years ago, started off at Merced County Probation, jumped into CDC, and then climbed the ranks to the classification route. And so for the last, I'd say 10 years I've been in classification, primarily dealing with the camp pipeline. So the 30 fire camps that we have in California, I'm one of two who oversee all the classification to get those inmates out to fire camps. When we took Pine Grove over, it was a totally new era for me because the criteria, and I'll kind of wrap it up at the end of the presentation just to remind you guys, but the criteria for these youth to be placed and to fight these fires is completely different than the adult side. So as Lieutenant said, we work as a team. My main job, and I'm not going to go through all the nitty-gritty details in the PowerPoint. I think what I want to relay to you and to your team and your probation staff and law enforcement and your judges, Pine Grove is set up to basically take almost any single juvenile, delinquent juvenile kid into this program. We have kids who are very serious, very violent offenders who have committed murder first, murder second, just to name a few, which in the adult world there'd be no place for them. However, in the juvenile world, this camp is set up to basically screen. The only thing that's going to keep a kid from going to this program is basically if he has medical issues, if he has psych issues, which we screen through. But as far as if he's a serious or violent offender, the majority of these kids, they come from that background, but over time, they go through processes with probation, they go in front of judge several times, they go through different treatments, and once they prove themselves, basically before the judge, to get placement at Pine Grove, my job as a screener is to just make sure that all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted, and that the mental health screening, all that stuff's been completed. But what you guys need to know and what probation staff need to know is basically any referral that you guys make for Pine Grove, they're most likely going to go, because again, at the end of the day, it takes your professional team, your DA's office, your public defenders, your probation, your judge. They're all going to come together and make a decision on if they want to place this kid in this program. And as long as all the paperwork's completed, which I make sure happens, and I coordinate with your agencies, we're going to accept that kid. There's only a few things that would preclude him. So let's look at this. Let's look at this slide real quick. Or there you go. There's I'm not going to read through these. On to the next slide. And there you go, talking about behavioral health issues. There's a few things. Exemption requests. Again, if any of these things are checked, your team will just request an exemption. On to the next slide. Behavioral issues, factors continued. I will say probably the one thing that would preclude him is a sexual misconduct rule violation or sexual case, like if he's a 290 registrant. But the rest of those cases we're just going to, or those case factors we would look at and just get information on and make sure the team's aware and move the case forward. Next slide, please. And I kind of did a good job just summarizing what we're going to do, so we can just keep going through this. Escape. Yep, next slide. Perfect. So, Melinda, did you want to go through this, or do you want me to finish this off? Okay. Because I sit in your guys' shoes, and I know that sometimes we get bored with presentations. This is all just the paperwork side of things. When it comes to the minute orders, probation staff, there's going to be a packet that would have to be submitted to our office, which we would screen the minute order, basically the judge making the referral for Pine Grove. We'd have the probation report. It's going to have, we got about 5 attachments that would need to be filled out by probation staff. You can go to the next slide. And another thing your team, a question I get from a lot of counties is they wonder how long the process takes. We were given, part of the reason why this was given to me as a program is because I don't like to fail, and I don't like to ever be late on things. So we say that it takes 3 business days for us to turn things around. If you guys submit a packet to my desk Monday morning, it'll be off my desk Monday midday, signed off by my warden. The biggest thing that we get held up with counties is the mental health, the psych, the medical. So basically, the biggest holdup is the counties getting us the proper forms, getting everything checked off, all the evaluations completed. But if I get a complete packet in front of my desk, it'll be off my desk that day. So it's a quick turnaround on our end. And the first few cases, if you guys were to go down this road and contract with CDC, I always hold the county's hand. I always am available, phone calls, emails, Zoom calls, walking them through the process. It's not rocket science, but anything new is always a bit of a challenge no matter what you do. So I'm here to just walk your team through the classification side, the submitting of a packet side of the house. So if you want to skip to the next one. You can go ahead and skip to the next one. Now we'll get on to the firefighting program, which is Melendez. And then again, I just want to reiterate, if you guys, and this is something that's not in the contract, or that's not in the presentation that I want to bring to your attention too. And I had to double check with my contract unit up in Sacramento. This program, you would think would be very expensive for your county to contract with. I had to get the numbers twice to make sure. It's $10 a day. So if you guys submit a packet, we accept one of your juveniles. It's $10 a day, and then when they do the firefighting training, I think it's like $81 a day, which takes 2-3 weeks. So the bang for the buck, it's completely irrelevant. It's basically free. And so that was a lot of questions that some of the counties had, how expensive is this gonna be? Another thing I wanna touch on real quick that I've heard from judges and probation staff, especially more from rural communities or rural counties, is what is the influence that this is going to have on our youth. If we have a kid in an urban environment and we're sending him to Pine Grove, where a lot of our children are, or a lot of our youth come from LA, Riverside, maybe Crips, Bloods, kind of the gang aspect. That's some of the judges and the probation team's concerns, is what kind of influence. And my response to them is, again, these kids have earned their way to be placed at Pine Grove. They may have a horrible background, but they've earned their place to get there. And then we have an amazing team. She'll go over some of the programs, including the firefighting program, but that's just part of it. But as far as staff supervision, our staff ratio is much higher than like at the adult side of camps. So what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of hands-on, a lot of staff, a lot of programming. So the idea that the kid could potentially be influenced by some of these more urban, type mentalities, I won't say that it's eliminated 100%, but I will say that those kids have earned a right to be there, and we haven't seen an issue yet. And I've been overseeing Pine Grove since March. So it's a new program, but there's a lot of good things in store. So I just wanted to touch on a few of those items that have come up as concerns from some of the counties. So I'll hand it back over to you.
Give me
Yeah,
one
Naia,
sec. Go ahead.
Before you step away, let me ask you, one of the members of the community came forward and told the board that some of the, I guess, inmates or the youth that are at the camp, don't have a good background, as you put it, and that they felt they might be a threat to the community. I'm glad to hear that they are, there's a screening process. Has this always been the case in the past, that there were youth with a violent background and potentially, or is this kind of new?
So I don't want to speak on something I may not be 100% on.
Okay.
I was handed Pine Grove back in March. So whatever the program was when it was DJJ, I'm unaware of that criteria. I'm unaware of that screening criteria. I will tell you now, the screening criteria that's in place, like I said, the mental health, making sure they're not on any sort of psych meds, the physical, that screening is taking place. The teams from the county's probation, DA, it's not just one person in a silo making a decision to refer this kid to Pine Grove. It's a whole team of the professionals. So I would say in that sense, it should make community members a little bit more at ease. But I work in the adult world as well, and these folks have been sentenced to prison, to the juvenile side of things because they've committed a crime. So there's always going to be an element of, there's always going to be an element of some sort of risk, but our job is to mitigate that risk. And I feel that with our screening process, we do mitigate that risk, but more importantly, the team of professionals that works prior to them even submitting that case is very thorough and is done well. So
Thank you.
Confident.
One thing I will say is I'm glad to hear the camp's going to remain open. It's, I know, pardon?
No, it's-
No, I know they do a lot of community projects in the cities and the county, and it's nice having that firefighting resource close.
Yeah, it is.
Are there hard restrictions for inmates with background offenses that are sexual in nature or arson?
Yes, and actually here, I'll just read.
And I saw the one was somebody playing with illegal fireworks. I can see maybe an exemption for that.
So ones that would require exemption are a runaway, I'll just read some of them. Possession of illegal fireworks, sexual misconduct, rule violation, birthplace outside the U.S. So basically, what that means is if they submit a packet to me and one of those boxes is checked, I'm going to do a lot of digging. I'm going to find the circumstances, contact potentially the DA. I'm going to run it. I don't get to make a decision. My associate warden will, and then the warden. So the point of those criteria is that there's a lot more eyes on approving that specific case. I would say the majority fall within the serious or violent offenses. And again, we're confident that by the time it's reached our office and the team that submitted it, we still look at the criteria, we still look at the circumstances. And there, I mean, there's a human element, right? We can't deny it. But I will tell you from experience, working on the adult side, there's usually folks with long rap sheets, 30, 40 pages long, several robberies, several violent offenses. Most of these kids that I've screened, it was like a one-time offense. It was an emotional, didn't think about it, pulled the trigger type situation. But when you step back and you look at their whole background, it was just most of the time it's just wrong place, wrong time, bad decision. They don't have that length of history of violence like we see on the adult side of things. So hopefully I answered your question.
Well, somewhat. I was a former employee at Pine Grove Camp with
Okay.
the youth, and those were not eligible for an exemption, a sex offense, an arson offense.
Sure.
Arson offense is much different than playing with illegal fireworks. It's somebody who actually started a fire intentionally. So there is a chance that they could get an exemption for either arson or a sexual offense?
No, so possession of illegal fireworks is a potential exemption, but the 6 criteria that would rule you out completely are escape by force or violence, sustained petition or conviction, so basically conviction of arson. So if you're convicted of arson, you're not coming out. Manufacture of explosive device, if you got found guilty of that, you're not coming out. History of an offense that is sex related. If you're convicted of a sex offense, you are not coming out. The exemption would be the sexual misconduct rule violation. So if you're in the street and you commit a rape, you're not coming. But if you're in custody and maybe an inmate were to slap somebody's butt, that would be a sexual misconduct rules violation. So we would look at those 2 differently. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So conviction versus in-house sexual misconduct.
All right, thank you.
how long are these offenders in the system before they come to Pine Grove? How long are they being evaluated, and are they in the system for a year and then coming here, or is it right after a judgment, or?
So there's no definite answer, but they're in the system long enough to where they've done some step-down programs. They have got treatment. They've been in front of the judge, their treatment team several times. So I would say on average, it probably takes a couple years to earn that status.
Okay.
I'm not digging too deep into that side of the house. I'm more when they submit it, but I would say based on what I've seen, it's usually a couple of years for them to get there. And then as far as how long they can be in the program, we can't accept somebody for longer than 72 months. For instance, if a kid comes in at 20 and they're all going to be leaving at 25, if he does a really good program for 2 years, does a great job at Pine Grove, the judge might end his sentence at 22, 23 instead of 25. So I'd say, to answer your question, I'd say the average would probably be a couple of years.
Okay. Thank you.
These are juvenile commitments, though, so they can't go beyond that 25, or do
Correct.
some of them have leeway to go further than that?
As far as I understand, it's 25. Okay. Yeah. Any other classification questions? Awesome. If anything else comes up, I'll be here, and then we'll have Lieutenant Melendez talk about the program more. Thank you, guys.
All right, good morning. I'm Jed Gaines, Assistant Chief with CAL FIRE. I oversee all the CAL FIRE operations in Amador County and Pine Grove Camp. So we'll go over a little bit of the firefighting program that we offer at camp once the youth arrive and they're screened all on the CDCR side. They bring them in for intake, make sure that they're going to program once they get to camp and everything. Usually they're there for a few weeks before we start a training class. We like to typically have a minimum of 4 before we start a training class. And some of the training they receive is up to 96 hours initially. It's about 12 days. We incorporate physical fitness in with that and classroom portion. They receive 6 certificates, 1 CAL FIRE and 5 NWCG, National Wildfire Coordinating Group certificates. And then after they get some training and they're on the crew for a little bit, we will start introducing them into some chainsaw training, and then they can start operating chainsaws after they have some time on the crew. Youth will be assigned a firefighting crew consisting of 12. 12 is kind of our minimum number to be considered a Type 1 fire crew with a maximum of 17 on there. Currently, we're sitting with 14 on the crew right now, with 1 crew in camp. The crew works, like Mr. Oneto said, they go out every day, Monday through Friday, from around 8 to 4 for community projects. The youth will also receive an hourly wage once they're assigned on the crew, and depending on the position on the crew, the pay is based on the position they're in on the crew. Under the direction of CAL FIRE, youth are engaged in various types of conservation community service work for federal, state, and local agencies. They include field breaks, road and highway clearance, creek clearing, grounds and facility, and you guys know we do all kinds of projects within the community here. Right now, we've been working in conjunction with the Amador Fire Safe Council and the Amador County Roads, trying to do, we've committed to doing 20 miles of road clearing under the Fire Safe Council grants that they've received. So they're doing that. Currently, they've been working a couple days a week in the Jackson Creek area. We finished Ione a little bit earlier, and then we're kind of going between Jackson and Sutter Creek on the creek projects before wintertime comes. The major emphasis of the camp program is on employability skills with a strong emphasis on developing good work habits. The youth also receive leadership training within the crew's structure. So we do have, we call them swamper drag spoons, like a first, second man, so they have a little bit of structure within their groups or within the crew themselves, and kind of helps develop them to come up for supervisory roles. So that's about all we have on the firefighting side, unless there's any questions on that.
Do they run a normal task book?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Yeah, I have one question. What's your daily charge for the crew to like a city?
It's about $225 a day.
Does that include the equipment and stuff?
It depends on the equipment. If we have to bring chippers and different things out there, we could negotiate a different price on that, but typically just bring the crew out for what they're doing. In the Jackson Creek projects right now, it's about $225 a day.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No.
Thank you very much.
All right, so I will quickly go through some of the services and programs that we offer at Pine Grove. I'd like to consider our program as a whole, just like almost like a wraparound service to get these young men to be productive members of society as they leave our camp.
I was asked by our radio station owner if you could speak more into the mic.
Sorry,
Okay,
not used to this.
thank you.
Clearly. All right, so as far as services and programs, we have 2 organizations on grounds at Pine Grove, which is the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, ARC, and also Amity Foundation, and they provide treatment services to these young men. These young men have a full-time, very busy week. As far as ARC and Amity go, they provide services such as restorative justice, criminal addictive thinking, victim impact, positive reinforcement, motivational incentives, any kind of relapse prevention, violence interpretation, substance abuse counseling, reentry, and transitional planning. Also, there's one-on-one counseling and continued and support and aftercare. So there are occasions in which they leave Pine Grove and they go into a reentry housing service. And a lot of these organizations will follow up to ensure that these gentlemen are getting all of the resources that they need, again, working toward their success. The follow-up portion of this is a big deal because that's typically when they'll start to kind of stray away from the plan and they kind of get them back on track. In addition to treatment, youth also may participate in college courses, volunteer programs, restorative justice programs, sports activities, and various activities within the community. This is one thing that I love and appreciate about this community is they are always invited to assist with different events within the community. I think we just got invited to Friends of the Library or something like that, and they love to have them there, and they're very helpful. And it brings a lot of positivity into their lives because it's they're interacting with the community, and that's not something that a typical offender will experience in their life while they're incarcerated. I'll take the next slide, Heather. We also have the Division of Adult Parole Operations on grounds, and they assist with the case management portion of this. They communicate with the court system of the county, of said county. They ensure that the youths are getting to their progress report hearings in a timely manner. They track the youth's behavior during his term there, and they follow up with the judge to make sure that they're getting all the pertinent information pertaining to how this youth is behaving while at Pine Grove. I'll take the next slide, Heather. I won't get too into the weeds of it. I'll take the next one. So these are some of our contacts. If anyone's interested in reaching out, I will also leave some business cards in case anyone's interested in ever coming by, taking a tour of our facility. And then for the last slide, this is a QR code that shows a recruitment video, a recent recruitment video, and gets more into the weeds of some of the stuff that we participated in recently, and it really emphasizes the program as a whole, kind of what we did today. I just want to say that, as I mentioned earlier, I am new to the area. I grew up in Southeast LA, and I also grew up in an urban neighborhood. I was lucky enough to have some mentors that pulled me out of my ways at the time and showed me a different direction on how to do things. I didn't grow up knowing anyone who worked for the Department of Corrections. I actually grew up with family who were incarcerated. With that being said, I'm very, very grateful for my mentors. I am very passionate when it comes down to being part of a team that genuinely cares, and also giving these gentlemen a sense of feeling like a normal human. One thing I don't like to see is people beat them down for what they're there for. We've already taken their liberties, and so it is my belief that if we pour genuine, kind, inject humanity into these young men, that we can definitely make a difference in their lives, and they can come back. I mean, we have some amazing gentlemen that got out of Pine Grove. They went to the Ventura Training Center, Ventura Training Facility, and they actually now work for CAL FIRE. They've legitimately changed their lives around. I've been lucky enough to meet some of these young men. With that being said, I just want to also thank the community for commending these young men when they're out there. They get very, very excited when they're being recognized by the community for doing what they do out there. A lot of these young men didn't grow up hearing positive feedback from their families and from their family, friends, and their own community members. So they get really excited when they hear that. So thank you guys for all the positivity that you pour into them. They're very appreciative, and that really goes a long way with them. So thank you so much for having us here, and do you have any questions for me?
What's your crystal ball for the future? You have just enough to man a crew right now, but what's your crystal ball say?
So my crystal ball says the possibilities are endless. I'm a senior millennial, so I have a lot of hope for adding new programs. I'm hoping to find some volunteers in the community that could show these young men basic skills to leave here, so like fixing cars. So there's a lot of programs that I'm hoping to implement here.
With fire season being a huge chunk of where they have to be available on a drop of a dime, as you know, they gotta be ready to roll. So ultimately, we want to engage more more counties so that we can acquire more gentlemen that could take advantage of this opportunity. We have a very low population right now, so we're hoping ideally if we can get to 4 crews, that would be phenomenal. But we're not 100% sure what that looks like right now. We have signed with 21 counties. We have executed 21 contracts with 21 counties, and we currently have 9 in progress. So we're hoping that we could disseminate this information to as many counties as possible so that we can get some more young men in the pipeline.
What is your retention like right now? Are you at 100%, or have you, I mean, usually you get somebody who decides they don't want to be there.
Yeah, and that's fine. If they decide they don't want to be there, we have to send them back to their county. It would totally contradict what we're trying to accomplish, and we can't. And unfortunately, it is a little bit of a process. You come from an urban community, like say, I can speak for Los Angeles County, that's where I'm from. So coming from Los Angeles and coming up here, I think it's absolutely stunning and beautiful, but these young men are used to toting a certain line where they come from. So it does take them a while to get acclimated. So there have been a couple in the past couple months that say, you know what, this is not for me. And I've actually had some gentlemen, which kind of blew my mind, say this is too much freedom, which is a symptom of just being institutionalized. So, if that's the case, I have tried my best to try to persuade these young men to see the long game, right? In the long term, this is a great benefit for you, but sometimes they're just not there yet.
Thank you.
Any other supervisor?
I think it's a heck of a good deal for a county if you're talking $10 a day generally. And not only that, even not just the money, but maybe you're taking a young kid and giving them something to look forward to. That's probably the biggest benefit.
100%. We're hoping to start building some data at some point, so we can, well, as soon as possible actually, so we can kind of share that with the community later down the road. There have been a lot of phenomenal success stories coming out of Pine Grove, and I would really love to share that with our community at some point.
Yeah, I saw a while back when they really did that, when they made like basically a process to go through the camp to go and get hired on at fire agencies, and that's really, I could say it'd be a real good thing. It's one thing to go to camp and work and serve the community, but what's your road after that? But you're saying, hey, you go out and you do your time, serve the community, and hey, we got a job for you here where you can have a pretty good life. I mean, if I was in there, I'd say, hey, I like that deal.
Yes, and there's a lot of young men that they never thought that they would have an opportunity to start a career like this. So they're there, they're doing the work, they're dedicated, and they're like, wait, I can do this. They get excited to send photographs to their families of them in uniform, you know, in their Nomex, and it gives them something to be proud of.
Supervisor Crew?
Lieutenant, you said there's 9 counties currently using are they mostly bigger urban counties?
So there are 9 counties in progress to sign contracts with us. And we've executed and completed 21 contracts with 21 counties. As far as urban, I'd say it's kind of 50-50.
It's a mix of...
But you have San Bernardino County, which is a very large county. So, but we have, I mean, just to name a few, obviously Amador, Contra Costa, El Dorado, Merced, Monterey, Placer, Siskiyou, Solano, Ventura, just to name a few, so.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, open it up to the public.
Mark Benini, the Chief Probation Officer for Amador County. I just wanted to answer or speak to a couple of the questions that came up. I think it was Supervisor Brown. You had asked a question, typically how long a juvenile offender is in the system before they get to Pine Grove Camp. It is a moving target. There isn't any one way to do this. However, in many cases, a juvenile can come into the system at age 14, have issues, leave the system, come back because they committed another offense before they're 18, Maybe the county has tried placing that juvenile in a group home, and ultimately that juvenile may have failed, may have returned to custody, and then at some point, the judge decides now as an option that I'm going to send you to Pine Grove Camp because they meet that criteria, that age of 18, they reach the age of 18 and some of the other criteria that's up there. So the judge can make that commitment, and again, it's a collaborative effort at the local level because the probation department, the judge, who ultimately says where that case or that commitment goes or that juvenile goes, the DA, the public defender, we all get together, come up with some sort of plan for the juvenile as far as the disposition. That juvenile can be committed to Pine Grove Camp, and let's say they're done before they're 23, but their age of jurisdiction doesn't end until 25, they'll return to the community then under the supervision of the probation department. So it doesn't necessarily end once they complete their program. So there's a lot of different on-ramps, off-ramps throughout the system for us to utilize as those cases come to us. But it could be one offense at age 17 that they find themselves in the system and ultimately up at Pine Grove Camp by, right after turning 18 and can stay there till they're 25. Most counties, though, will return that kid or that commitment back to the county because we want to have at least a 6-month tail on them locally to see how they do when they return from camp. So that takes, I think, care of that piece of it.
Can they be committed to Pine Grove at 17 prior to turning 18? Because the way it used to be is they couldn't go into the firefighting program until they turned 18. They could come up as 17-year-old.
Yeah, entry's 18. I mean, maybe the court can do a commitment prior to that. I don't see any reason why the county wouldn't just hold that juvenile. If they're going to go to Pine Grove Camp, they're more than likely going to be in custody at the county level. Just hold them over until they're 18, make that commitment, and then go through the process and get them up there as quickly as possible. I think it was Supervisor Axe that had asked something relative, I'm drawing a blank. Do you remember the question you had asked earlier?
Public safety, wasn't it?
Well, yeah. What occurred, it was relative to how the process worked when it was under the control of the Division of Juvenile Justice under CDCR.
Yeah, how it differs.
How it differs. And realistically speaking, it differs in a positive way too. Counties couldn't really get a juvenile commitment to Pine Grove Camp on their own. You had to, the commitment had to reach a level, usually it was a 707B offense of the Welfare and Institutions Code, which are your high-level cases, to get that juvenile committed to DJJ, and then the population for Pine Grove Camp came out of DJJ itself. So counties couldn't commit kids to DJJ unless they met that criteria. Now counties can directly commit kids to Pine Grove Camp under all the criteria you've seen, unless they've committed one of those exclusionary offenses. So I just wanted to speak to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Just the county side at least. And it's my understanding, I was just at the chief's meeting last week, as the lieutenant had said, counties are securing their contracts and getting that done. It's been kind of a slow process in some cases, but all the chiefs are very upbeat about their commitments going up to Pine Grove Camp and want to utilize it. It was something that through budget cuts and some of the things that happened over the last year or two, that Pine Grove Camp was really on the chopping block when it came to closing the camp. I think I've seen it on the personal side and professional side, all the work that they do here in the community. I don't think anybody can argue that what they do isn't valuable to the community and even abroad with the fire suppression and the other things that they do on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else from public?
Do you have a conflict of interest?
Not that I'm aware of.
I'm just kidding.
My name is Cindy Grambois. I'm a member of this community. First off, I'd like to say that the men that have been committed to Pine Grove Camp do a fantastic job in our community. There is absolutely no doubt that they have saved this county a ton of money for the work that they put in. Here's some of my concerns. I didn't hear anybody address if there's been any incidents with the crew. Have they broken into any houses? Have there been any thefts? if one of these incidences occur, are the police called? I mean, it would be a crime. I would hope that local police would be notified. Secondly, what I'm getting out of what I've heard with the new program basically is that you can murder 3 people but don't get caught with a couple of illegal fireworks. This is the level of commitment that these men have at this camp. I call them men because, yes, they may have been convicted when they were 17, but they are all 18 to 25. And if you're old enough to join the military as a man, then I'm going to not demean you by calling you anything other than a man. You are a man. When they come into our community, if the majority of these inmates are convicted of very violent offenses, is there a correctional officer present with them at all times? If not, why? You're handing them tools that can be used as weapons. They are amongst us. If they escape, which majority of escapes do occur off of the work assignments, I would think that's where you would want the most protection for the community. I want to know what steps CDCR is taking to protect the community. I understand the rehabilitation side, and it's important. I totally support trying to rehabilitate, but I would like to see some public safety added to the mix. Thank you.
Thank you. LT, could you answer some of those questions?
Take a run at it anyway.
Yeah.
Forgive my confusion, so it sounds like there was a public safety concern there?
Well, it was, public safety is that, has there been any escapes?
Since I have been involved with Pine Grove and since the transition over to Department of Adult Institutions, no, there has not been any.
Has there been any known break-ins to property?
No, not at this time.
And I think kind of the answer on the other one was if we have somebody who's murdered 3 times, they would not qualify to get into the program.
And I will defer that question to CC2 Kirk.
Okay.
So we could get into how many murders, this case, that case. I think the way I want to answer that is, have we had kids up at camp who have committed, murder? Yes, we do. Does it mean that we don't look at the case? Does it mean that the probation staff, the DA, the public defender, the judge, do they just look at the charge but not the circumstances? Absolutely not. We look, the first thing, the reason why we request a probation officer report is because it gives an in-depth, detailed history of that kid's upbringing, his cases, the circumstances of the offense, the thought process. So I'll just give you one example. We had one kid who, his dad came home and said, get in the car, gave him a gun, and went driving, and when they pulled up to a spot, his dad was a gang member. He told his son, you're gonna shoot at this car. So the kid shoots the car and kills somebody. So we look at things like intent. Did that kid intend to kill somebody? Well, yeah, he pulled the trigger, but did he really truly intend? Did he wake up that day and say, I'm gonna go kill this other rival gang member? No, because his father put him in the car, gave him direction. So we look at the elements of the crime, we look at the intent, the history, how violent it was. There's a lot of thought that goes behind each case. So now if that person, I'm just giving you examples, if that person had tortured and maliciously thought and planned it out and spent weeks and, there's a lot of intent and forethought into that, it'd be a different conversation. That juvenile most likely would be recommended to be denied. And quite frankly, he probably would have never even showed up on my desk because the team behind me would have not made that recommendation. So I don't want people to think it's just we look at the charges and check a box. We also look into the circumstances, look into the history, look into the environment, look into the rationale, the intent, all that stuff. So
The last question is security while they're out as a team somewhere. What is the security at that point as they're a team?
So security will depend on the
with our procedures. It'll depend on the level, where there's certain levels that are categorized. For example, we have a crew today who will be working the Jackson Creek. There is custody staff that are with them today. I believe there are 2 fire captains and 1 custody staff. So, and that's something that's communicated between Chief Gaines and myself. If there's a level of concern, we will send a custody staff member, one of my officers, out there with the crew.
Okay. Thank you.
Got another question?
I do. Actually, I do. I'm familiar with the creek projects. They don't normally send a correctional officer. Why did they send a correctional officer today?
They sent a correctional staff member today because there were allegations which were unfounded of I don't even know because they were unfounded, so no one actually saw this happen. A woman approached the crew last week and made allegations that there was marijuana stolen out of her backyard. Again, they were simple allegations. There was no proof. However, it did cause concern, so we sent a custody staff member.
Okay, thank you.
Just out of curiosity, was the marijuana found?
There was no marijuana found.
And can you explain why, given the level of potential risk to the community, a correctional officer isn't sent
with the crew every time they leave the grounds, just for public safety?
I understand. I just want to, for the record, want to say that I understand these concerns, and if I had, I can relate. So there, just for the record, there was no marijuana found, and I'm sorry. Can you repeat your question one more time?
Well, why isn't there security all the time?
Okay, so as I mentioned, in our procedures, there's a level, and that level of security is determined between the chief and myself. So we, for example, we would commute out to a location, and we would make a determination on whether or not that location will need custody staff. So for example, the project today, the custody staff, the crew is close to homes and whatnot, so at that point it would be a level 3 project, and we would send a custody staff. With how close the proximity to this particular project, to the camp, and also for the fact that we can respond pretty quickly in case there's an emergency, we always have staff available to respond, so that ultimately is determined between the chief and myself.
Thank you.
No problem.
Do you liaison with, like, the city of Jackson with the city police force?
I'm sorry, are you asking if I am a liaison?
No, if of your group, as we're gonna be in town, keep an eye out for us, kind of backup? Or are you not involved in that?
For example, I have staff, some of my staff will drive by just to kind of check in and go. If we have to get local law enforcement involved in anything, that's definitely something that we can do. That's not an issue.
Okay.
So, anybody else from the public?
There's some Zoomers.
Yeah, that's what I see.
Okay.
Thank you. Our first comment is from Mr. Heisenbuttel. Please go ahead when ready.
Hi, Board. John Heisenbuttel from Pine Grove. I'm on the board of the Amador Fire Safe Council. For the record, the camp crew does phenomenal work in reducing fuels and protecting local communities from catastrophic wildfire. And they do their best work when there are 4 Pine Grove. My question is, how many full crews do they have now? When will they get up to 4 full crews? And what's the problem with getting up to 4 full crews? Thank you.
So we can take up to, like you stated, 4 full crews. Even though the program started in March, it's still relatively new. So I'm answering this question because Melendez is looking at me wondering, when are we going to get more referrals? I'm having conversations with counties on a weekly basis. I have Zoom meetings with them all the time. Nothing in the court world moves fast. So I have lots of counties looking, preparing cases, getting ready to make Pine Grove referrals, from the judge here basically over the next few weeks, few months. Based on how fast we've gone, my guess is it's probably going to take a year, maybe a year and a half to get to Pine Grove being full, but that could all change like the probation chief stated. Lots of chiefs are talking about it. We're signing contracts, it seems like every week. So I think once counties get used to the referral process and understand the process, and they just get it in their mindset that it's available. When you're down in LA, you're not really thinking Pine Grove, but actually LA is thinking Pine Grove because they were some of our first. But my guess is probably within about the next year we should be full, and then I think the pipeline will stay consistent. And just so you guys know, it's not first come, first served. So I think LA only has 10 beds contracted. So each county that contracts with Pine Grove has a certain amount of bed space. So they could be coming from all over the state pretty quick.
Thank you. Next, Zoomer.
Mr. Poor, please go ahead when ready.
Hi, I just want to take a moment to talk about how much the community appreciates Pine Grove Camp. I'm a lifelong resident, born and raised here, and my whole life my family has embraced the camp. And more recently, my daughters participated in Rotary speech contest that members, the gentlemen from the camp came and participated side by side with the high school students, and always had a really positive experience. Then later, my daughter performs with Volcano Theater Group, and the Volcano Theater has invited the gentlemen from the camp to go to a dress rehearsal, usually the last dress rehearsal before any performance, and are often considered to be the very best audience of any performance. They get the best feedback, the best participation, and are just really endorsed. I grew up in the town of Drytown, where every year the camp provides decorations to hang up around town. We see them in our community projects, helping the creeks from flood. We've seen them work on our parks. And I don't think I've ever spoke to anybody in this community that has felt that we should stop having the camp, and otherwise everybody would fight to keep it because it is an integral part of our community. So I'm just very thankful for everything that is done there, both at the administrative level and from the students who are there.
Thank you.
We have Ms. Evett. Please go ahead when ready.
Hi, this is Catherine Evett from Volcano, community member. I just want to say that I think it's really good to hear that the camp is moving forward and that counties are signing up. I know 3 years ago might seem like a long time, but most of you will remember the effort that was put together to help save the camp. And it was a coalition of juvenile justice advocates, members of the fire protection and fire safety world, counties like the county of Amador, and a lot of local citizens who were involved in making sure that the Pine Grove camp could stay alive, because it's such an important asset not only to our county but also to our region. I would also like to say that in terms of concerns about wards who are recommended to be in the camp, I have a lot of faith in our chief probation officers. And one of your former chief probation officers was a friend of mine. And I know that those officers take their job very seriously, and they are not going to recommend someone who go to Pine Grove Camp who isn't suitable for that role, because they would take personal responsibility if something bad were to happen to them. So I'm glad to hear things are moving forward. I hope camp can staff up so it's 4 full crews, and I'd like to thank those who made the presentation today. Thank you.
Any other Zoomers?
Not at this time.
Cindy, you had one more question?
I do. I just want to be clear. Pine Grove Camp is important. It always has been important. It will continue to be important. But the program has changed as we know it. That is my concern, that the changes to the program are not being reflected in public safety. I once again would like to put a formal request to you that a correctional officer be present every time a crew leaves that camp, at least for a year or two, while they're getting their feet under them to make sure that the camp, I mean, yes, there hasn't been any escapes. This year, the program is very new. DJJ just left in I think, June. I don't think there's anything wrong with erring on the side of caution where public safety is involved. Having a correctional officer for at least 2 years with the crew at all times, and then reevaluate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy, it sounds like they're operating just like Pine Grove Camp under the youth model was operating. And they did not have a correctional officer with them all the time either. Only when it appeared like common sense dictated they have a correctional officer. And they have the same age group at the camp, so they have the same frailties as the model under the youthful offender program.
I hear what you're saying, but when you worked there, 2, 3 convicted of violent crimes?
No, there were a lot more than that.
What was it, 100% murders?
A lot of carjackings, murders, yeah, violent offenses. It changed in the last 5 to 7 years that I worked there. And you really, some of those, especially the ones that come in for murder, hard murders, might be your better inmates because they just want to get out. They've been in the system too long.
I think that's a lot of faith being put. I think that you've got city and county employees that are being put in the proximity to where they could be harmed. Who's responsible if one of them gets harmed?
Well,
if one of your county road employees gets injured, who's on the lawsuit?
Yeah, there's always risk.
There is, but I also feel that my request is reasonable. I don't think that budgetary concerns should override public safety. And just for maybe 2 years, I think is a reasonable request, just to ensure for the program safety that nothing goes wrong so that it can become strong and more effective.
You know, I guess, you know, going back to the question I asked is how did it operate under the previous entity? And it seems like they had similar inmates or with the same kind of profile or background, and they didn't always have a correctional officer every time. I don't believe that there were any, you know, I guess there was the occasional escape and that kind of stuff, but anyhow, there are risks. I mean, there's no doubt.
No, there was the booze party in Volcano that happened too. So, but
the what party?
The alcohol party. They had a good person who unlocked the shed and gave them tools, and then he dummy locked the lock. Unfortunately, inmates are very observant. And they saw the alcohol in the shed too, so they filled up their canteens. This was a long time ago.
Well, you know, these things happen, I guess.
Yeah.
And just for clarification, they do have oversight when the inmates go out. It's not just inmates hopping in a crew and going out somewhere. There's people there with them, correct? And generally, how many staff go?
Yes, there is always oversight with these young men. So in recent cases, we have 2 fire captains that are out there with them. We just bumped our numbers up on the fire crew to 14, so there's 2 fire captains that are with them. If the chief and I have discussed it and we need to send a custody staff, it'll typically be either 2 fire captains and 1 custody staff member, and or one fire captain and 1 custody staff. And that is.
And the fire captain, is that what, CAL FIRE then?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, and I'd just like to also, our custody staff, when they're out in the community with them, they are also armed. We communicate with them thoroughly, we check in, we do counts. There's a safeguard in place. As a community member myself, I would never, ever put the public in any jeopardy. I also have with my career with CDCR, I have a level 4 background, so I'm very security minded. Having faith in these guys goes a long way also. So they just want to be treated like human beings. Are they perfect? Absolutely not, but none of us are. So there is definitely safeguards in place to ensure that the community is being safe. And I am always available to the community if there are any concerns that need to be addressed and elevated to my level. And I can assure the community that they will be heard. So I do appreciate Cindy's concerns and anyone else's concerns for that matter.
Thank you. Thank you, Lieutenant, for this presentation. Unless there's any other questions, we will go on to 2E. Public health requests, the approval of Amador County Public Health Strategy Plan for 2023-2028.
Good morning.
Morning.
We are here today to present Amador County Public Health Strategic Plan for 23 through 28. And my name is Joanne Hassan. I'm the Public Health Director, and this is Dr. Kerr, the Amador County Health Officer. And on the Zoom call today is the team of the Biodefense consultative team, and they are here to present as well. And so to start off, we were going to have them go ahead and do a piece of their part of the plan.
Hi there, my name is Dave Reddick. I am Chief Strategy Officer and co-founder of Biodefense Network. I got to say, you've had a couple hard acts to follow. I don't have $1 million check, and I don't have a story about a great program like Pine Grove Camp is offering, but I do want to tell you that your public health department has created an astoundingly powerful and forward-thinking strategic plan, and we've been honored to be part of that. I want to quickly introduce my business partner, Harlan Dolgen, who has worked on this as well. He'll introduce himself, and then we'll come back. He'll come back in a few minutes. Harlan?
I'm sorry, it took me a minute to unmute. Hello, everyone. Harlan Dolgen, just happy to be here. I'm the president of Biodefense Network and glad we could be part of this program.
So this is Dave again. We worked very closely with Lisa Kuntz and Cassara Heaton of MOVE, and I'm going to ask Cassara to introduce herself. She will be coming back in a moment as well. Cassara, would you like to say hello?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Yes, my name is Cassara Heaton. I'm the Interactive Director at MOVE. My role involved working on the branding and design of this plan, as well as helping define the mission, vision, and values of Amador County Public Health. And before we get started fully, I'd like to highlight, as you can see in front of you, that we made a conscious effort to embody the spirit of the new public health tagline, Together We Can, by incorporating photography from local photographers, and even team members of the public health department. So go ahead, Dave.
Thanks, Casera. So I wanted to tell you just a little bit about the strategic planning process. We relied on our experience, and then a book that we found very helpful called Building Your Strategic Plan. And but I wanted to say that in many cases, people who ask us to help them with their strategic plan will tell us, we've already got it in mind, and we know what we want. We just want you to sign off on it. And we say, never mind, but find somebody else. We want to work with departments that really want to get down into what their needs are and let us help them do that. And that's exactly what the leadership at the Amador County Public Health Department asked us to do, and we were proud to do that. You are fortunate to be served by a highly competent, dedicated staff of people there, and we were proud and honored to work with them. I'm going to ask Casera to talk a little bit about the mission, vision, and values, and then we'll be back in a minute. Casera?
Sure, and if we can open up the book and go to the next page. And yeah, so in developing the Amador County Public Health mission and values, our initial step was to gain insight into the individuals driving the department. We engaged in conversations, delving into the purpose of the department, the beneficiaries it serves, and the underlying motivation of its members. Like, why do you love working in public health? You know, what do you do? Why do you do what you do? So each member was asked individually, and we also took into consideration a lot of external feedback as well. And both sources provided valuable input that helped us shape the final mission statement. So go ahead and go to the next page. So the mission statement is as you can see in here. Together, we champion the health of Amador County by protecting the community, promoting well-being, and preventing illness for a more resilient tomorrow. Then after the mission, we asked them to imagine the future of the department, the community, and its accomplishments 5 years from now, as if time has fast forwarded. The vision is, we envision a strong and resilient Amador County where all have access to quality public health services and necessary resources. So together we can be healthy and live well. And then on the right, you can see a new logo for the department. And when creating this logo, it was crucial to capture the essence of the county's picturesque rolling hills, the majestic oak trees. We talked a lot about oak trees, and the spirit of this vibrant community that you all live in. And then lastly, the tagline, "Together we can," is reinforced by the values that the department upholds, which is excellence, dedication, collaboration, leadership, unity, and equity. That's it, Dave.
Thanks, Casera. So she mentioned outreach that we conducted. We surveyed 53 community leaders around the community, asking them what they thought the health department had done right, what it needed to improve on, and how it could do that. We got some excellent responses, and we quoted some of those responses in this plan with the approval of the people who we attributed to. And then we also surveyed 21 current department staff, and the results of that survey were totally anonymous. I don't even know who the people were who sent this information back, but we do know they were legitimate staffers. And we followed guidance on conducting what's normally called a SWOT analysis, where you ask strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The authors of the book that we work with suggest we call that challenges instead, so it can be kind of a SWOT-C analysis. But we asked the staff members not only what the strengths were and the weaknesses, but for every one of those strengths and weaknesses that they mentioned, we asked them to tell us exactly what the health department should do to build on those strengths, to work against the weaknesses, to take advantages of the opportunities, and to prepare against the threats or challenges. This is kind of a SWOT plus, we would call it. And we got some very interesting information from that, and we built on that to help the department create their strategic plan. Joanne, I think it comes back to you now.
I'll actually go ahead and pick up, and I'm going to ask Heather to flip back one page. There you go. And I'm going to speak about what public health factors and what data we used and a couple of sources. And with the help of the biodefense team, we reviewed some standardized data sources and rankings, including the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation annually publishes a report card ranking every county in the United States on a variety of public health factors. You'll see on this page that Amador County ranked 24th of 58 counties in California for 2023. And highlighting just a couple of areas, smoking and obesity rose up as areas of concern because these health behaviors and health conditions contribute to chronic disease, shortened lifespan, and lower quality of life. Public health already provides programs that address these areas, and our strategic plan is calling for us to explore additional opportunities to bolster that work. On page 9, and also in much more detail in Appendix B in the back of the document, are data about health outcomes and risk behaviors particular to Amador County residents. Amador County Public Health uses this type of data to inform program development, health education outreach, and public health services, and effective interventions that minimize health risk behaviors and prevent illness and accidents can lead to better health outcomes and lower rates of premature death.
So based upon what Dave had said, we had internal and external stakeholders. And based upon that, we established 5 goals that we wanted to work upon for the next 5 years. And one of those is, I'll just read, you'll notice on page, it starts on page 13, and it goes through the booklet, I think, through page 18. The goals are listed there, and they are accreditation readiness, fiscal stewardship, public health services, data modernization of the department, and departmental culture. So if you'd like to read further on that, you can delve into the packet that's in front of you. And let's see, I think it's you, Dr.
And I'm going to go a little bit more in detail on this One Health concept because it's one of the things that we really realize is important as we plan ahead. And what One Health is, I'll invite you to read in detail on page 19. One Health is an approach that recognizes the interaction. Human health is closely connected to the health of animals in our shared environment. And in particular, examples of this are zoonotic diseases, which are diseases that can pass between humans and animals, vector-borne diseases, for example, those that are transmitted to us by mosquitoes, and also sometimes to animals by mosquitoes, as well as food safety and several other aspects of the health and safety of a community are related to the One Health concept. This means that professionals in provision of human health services, animal health, agriculture, environmental health, we all need to communicate, collaborate on, and coordinate activities to address One Health challenges. And no one person, organization, or sector can address all the issues at the animal-human environmental interface alone, but together we can. Go ahead and hand it over to Harlan, and Heather, you could flip to the next page, please. One too far.
Harlan, you're up.
Okay, sorry about that. So what you're seeing in front of you on the left-hand side is a tool that was developed to track the progress towards the goals of the strategic plan over 5 years. We started with the strategic plan action items that the health department had already gathered and expanded on those. The tool is organized so that each year is represented by a different tab at the bottom. Each year is broken out by the 4 quarters of the year, and each quarter contains at least one task for each of the 5 goals that make up the strategic plan that were discussed earlier. Each task is broken out into deliverables. Then the deliverables are reported as they are completed to document progress towards that task. Finally, there is a RAG status, a red, amber, green status that identifies if the project is on track, and then that item is green. If it's a little behind, which would be amber, or if it's significantly behind, which would be red. So the project leaders will always know where the project stands at any given time and can report that out. And lastly, I think I'd like to turn it over to Dave, my partner, for some concluding thoughts.
Thanks, Harlan. So that's how we accomplish the work. We're happy to answer any questions you might have. I want to make one thing very clear. Creating a strategic plan would not have been possible without the honest drive for quality by Ms. Hassan, Dr. Kerr, Holly Sandman, Diana Averson, Melissa Harlan, Anna Schroed, and many other dedicated staff members. To the Board of Supervisors, you are incredibly well served by your professional public health officers there. Your constituents are well served, and you are well served. And we're honored to have been part of this process. Thank you.
With that being said, with that being said, our sincere gratitude goes out to all the partners who assisted us in the planning process and who work with us daily to keep our community safe and healthy and to continue on in the future. On that note as well, we have a health and wellness celebration. I don't know if you've heard of it, and we'll go ahead and share the flyer with all of you as well. It's on October 21st at the Italian Picnic Grounds from 1 to 4 p.m. and it's Public Health Presents Together We Can, a health and wellness fair. We have over 20 community partners that will be there. We have mega lungs that you can walk through and learn about all the diseases that affect the lungs. There's a nurse that will be there that will discuss all of the medical issues. Not just that COVID presents with lungs, but as well as other things, smoking and things like that. There'll also be a mini heart and a mini brain. So come and check it out along with the other vendors that are there. We'll be happy to have you there. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
There's, at that health event, I saw there were examinations, but there's not going to be any treatment, like for dental?
No. Did you, go ahead.
I do not believe the dental van is going to be at this event.
No.
Okay, thank you.
This will be loaded on the website?
Yeah.
Yes, we're going to be putting that up on our website, subject to your approval. And it's actually a really kind of fun interactive flip chart format there. And then for those that don't have internet access, certainly they could stop by the Public Health Department to take a look at the plan.
Where did some of the statistics in the very back come from like obesity, which I know I'm one of?
Talking about Appendix B?
Yes.
So that information is lifted from the report. Sutter Amador Hospital does a community health needs assessment every 3 years, and public health is part of that process. And they have some experts from Sac State who collate all that information. That was pulled out of the 2022 document where they actually crunch all the numbers and compare Amador County to the statewide normative
So the
averages.
statistics are coming out of Sutter, but like so many of us,
No, those are statewide statistics.
Okay.
Sutter just pulls them together and puts them in one place. And so it was because we collaborated on that effort already, rather than redoing the work, we use that document as a reference source.
because like myself, I'm retired military, so my doctor is at McClellan.
Right.
And so I wouldn't be in those statistics.
Correct. And thank you for that question. It's a good point of clarification. Those statistics are really agnostic to where care is received.
I was kind of wondering about that, because what about if people don't really go to a hospital much? How do they even fit in that statistic?
Right, those statistics, again, are not based on contact with a hospital or a hospital system or a healthcare system, but many of them are through surveys, through the experts in epidemiology who do all the number crunching have monitored on their problem list.
Contact then.
Yes, that's the type of contact. Also, when we do our programs to outreach, often to underserved populations, we keep tallies. For things like the tobacco reduction program, our outreach staff go to the school sites, talk to the students, gather numbers on how many kids have ever tried it, how many kids use these kind of, smoking or vaping on a regular basis, and we keep those kind of number tallies. Oh, dental, we presented some statistics a couple weeks ago. Anna from our department came and talked about those.
One question I have, do you ever compare the prison numbers versus the regular population in the county and see, do the prison numbers have a negative or positive effect on the numbers?
We absolutely pull out selected categories. We recently had the epidemiologists that we've contracted with the past couple years do a pull of communicable diseases data for a specific grant closeout, and we did pull out both the Mill Creek State Prison and the jail population from the Amador County general population as we were looking at those communicable disease conditions.
Yeah, well, jail would be everyday population, they're just in jail.
Correct.
The prison
although
population is a different population than the general population, I would think.
Correct. Correct. I think the one caveat to the jail is that because that is their place of residence when they are diagnosed with that condition, it does hit Amador County's resident category, even if their permanent home is not here.
Yeah, my question was, does the prison population cast a negative effect or positive effect on overall health of the Amador County residents?
As I said, we did sort it out for specific communicable diseases because some of those are more common in the jail population. Hepatitis C would be an example of that.
So really, these numbers you don't really know if the prison brings in a positive or negative number to the county overall. As far as like, say, life expectancy, diabetes, heart disease, just certain things. I don't know, but I would guess a lot of people in prison probably don't take as good a care of their health as a normal population generally.
They actually have probably more consistent access to health care.
I'm sure that's true. Yeah, I'm sure they get the best of care.
They do.
But I'm just saying how they take care of themselves.
The offset. And I don't know the answer to that question about the self-care habits of individuals who are incarcerated versus those who are not.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about Appendix B real quick. I mean, some of the data in there is kind of, I don't know, disappointing or concerning.
Yes.
Specifically, child mortality. It's not quite twice as high as the state average, but it's probably 75% higher. Do we have any, and then everything else seems to be higher than the state average. I mean, I guess there's maybe some really nice counties, and maybe, people don't have better health outcomes, but, do we have is there a backstory? Do we know anything about that?
Yes, first of all, thank you for pointing out that all of these numbers are where we fall short. And this is not a comprehensive list of everything that is listed. What we selected to include here, because this is where we need to take action, are those areas where we are performing less well than the state average, because those are our opportunities to make a difference. When you speak to child mortality, one of the things to always remember is because we are a small county, our numbers get approximately multiplied by 3 when we go to 100,000 population denominator for rates. So a small shift can multiply when it comes to a data set. Are there opportunities for improvement in childhood mortality? Absolutely. I think what we're really looking there is accidental deaths for the most part. Of course, there are some children who unfortunately get cancer, or something like Sid's death would be included in here. So that's one of the areas that one of our program managers just wrote a proposal for and was awarded a grant. You guys are familiar with the kids' plate license plates? A lot of them have a little hand on the license plate. That creates a fund. And so some of those funds are now being put out as grants to health departments to improve child safety. So this is going to launch some swim lessons and water safety initiatives. We're looking into getting loaner life vests to be put at all the major waterways that people can borrow when they go out there with their kids if they forgot to bring their own, bike helmets and some of those other kind of things. So that's what's helping us. Looking at these kind of numbers are what's helping us drive our programs.
I mean, did we look at, I guess, that, you know, for child mortality, what the number one, if there was a leading cause of death that,
That would be a project to dig.
so, you know, was it, you know, accidental drownings or, you know, bike you know, those kinds of things? I don't know. And then premature death looks a little higher. Heart disease, you know, that's higher. Everything's higher.
Right, as I said, we picked the things that we wanted to focus on in our plan and highlighted them here.
Yeah.
The full report from Sutter is available online too, and you can, there's like 6 pages of this kind of data. We thought that was a lot to include in the plan.
Yeah, I will say that the early childhood death is concerning. I think some of the other data, I'd wonder, you know, it may have a bearing because like it talks about, you know, we have a lot higher average older people than a lot of the state, and sometimes when people are getting older, they got more pain, and so, I mean, I've seen it myself where people I think are probably drunk 24/7. I think part of it's that's the way they manage pain. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but in some days, you know, you do that for the pain, and you become an alcoholic, and they're symbiotic. But I think that'll reflect the numbers some, and plus too, also, I guess all our economy's kind of taken a hit. It used to be a resource-based economy, and the mill went away. A lot of people work there, and finances have a big effect on your health or well-being to a certain degree.
Right. Yeah.
So are you going to follow up in the future, like next year, give a report on some, you know, try to dig into all this and enlighten us?
We can follow up with our goals that we worked on. You'll see the project plan. We can follow up with that next year to let you know where we're at with that. This is going to have to take a lot of drilling down with epidemiology and things like that. So that would be something that we would have to look into a little bit further.
And you know, the point that it's probably a small data set to begin with. You know,
right. The ends. Yeah.
Makes it hard to you know, get a statistically meaningful average. You know, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But you know, but just kind of like, wow.
Well, we have work to do, and that's why it's nice to come out to the health fair and you can get some healthy ideas, or the community can. So there's a lot of work to do that we have to do. So. You
know, one more thing I wonder about too is these numbers they're not done by one group or agency statewide. It's probably something you pull together. So probably depending on who's doing the report could influence how the report is done.
Right, there are different data sources. I think many of the death type statistics are pretty standardized at this point because there is a standardized registry that our clerk recorder has access to that, you know, basically the primary cause of death listed on a death certificate, and then there's another area where significant contributing factors can be listed. Sometimes the types of things like tobacco use or obesity, or, you know, somebody, for example, trying to think, maybe died of a stroke, and the significant underlying condition would be hypertension. So that's some of what gets pulled into these statistics.
Okay, yeah, some interesting information.
I like under your SWOT analysis, you had the funding as a challenge, but also as an opportunity.
Correct. Yeah. Thank you. Anything else? Okay.
I think we'll go to the public now. Anybody from the public or inquire?
Not at this time.
Anybody on Zoom? Okay, nobody on Zoom either. Well, we're back to the board. Can I get a motion to approve this strategic plan?
So moved.
Second.
Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Okay, now we will go to 2D. Update by the Amador County Health Officer, Dr. Rita Kerr, on the current status of flu, RSV, and COVID-19 in Amador County.
Can I make one more comment on the Appendix B? Would it be worthwhile to, instead of doing it per 100,000, maybe do the stats per 30,000? Would that really give you a different number?
That's a good
Don't know.
question. I think the challenge is finding normative data.
Well, certainly the state average is probably, you can do that. If they have a population over 100,000, then you can arbitrarily make it smaller, the divisor.
Something we could certainly bring up with the epidemiologists who, this is their game, they work numbers all day long, and they could tell us whether that's a valid comparison.
Does it, it should give you the same number, but I don't know.
Sometimes they get lost in the numbers. So.
The good ones know how to translate it so everybody else can understand it. I want to say thanks to our biodefense team, and I know most of them are either Midwest or on the East Coast, so it's getting late in the day. Thank you for sticking with us this long in the agenda, Casera, Dave, and Harlan, and appreciate your work with us, and you're welcome to leave the Zoom meeting if you'd like at this time. As long as I was here, I was asked to also give an update to the board and the community about the upcoming winter respiratory virus season, because we're almost there. The nationwide calendar clock for each new season starts October 1st, so that's this coming weekend. The last time I updated the board about respiratory viruses was at the end of February, when the local and statewide emergency declarations related to the COVID-19 pandemic were sunset, and then the federal emergency was terminated on May 11th. Over the summer months, traditional seasonality kind of held true this year, where the respiratory virus activity was low level. And however, not unusually, over the past month, we're starting to see an uptick in respiratory illness activity in California. So far, our flu numbers really haven't started to bump yet. We have not yet seen an early rise in RSV like we did last year. In October, it became quite a concern, but we have seen an uptick in COVID activity. So now is really the time to prepare for respiratory virus illness season. You'll recall that last fall the concern was about the three viruses, influenza, COVID, and respiratory syncytial virus, potentially all peaking at the same time and overwhelming our healthcare system, particularly our hospitals and bed availability. We don't have a lot of cushion in this country, and often, even before COVID, a bad flu season could really tax the capacity of hospitals. So now that we have yet another virus that's in our landscape and is going to be with us to keep, battling against, we do need to be prepared. So a couple of the recommendations, anticipating the 23-24 winter virus season, everyone ages 6 months and older is recommended to get the seasonal flu vaccine, which gets updated every year in anticipation of what we think the strains that will circulate most likely are going to be. And then also, you're probably aware that on September 11th, the FDA approved the reformulated COVID vaccination for the 23-24 respiratory illness season, which is targeting currently circulating variants. This is a monovalent. We're back to a monovalent vaccine formulation. Those bivalent vaccines have been decommissioned and all been disposed of. And at this point, the other major change, and I'm going to go ahead and have Heather put up that slide, that flyer, is that the U.S. government funding for everyone to be able to get a COVID vaccine has gone away. So the new product is now commercially available, and the manufacturers and the wholesalers are selling to hospitals, doctors' offices, clinics, and traditional insurance, including Medicare Part B and Part D, Medi-Cal, and all the commercial insurers are expected to, and actually required to, since there is a recommendation from the Committee on Immunization Practices, to cover the cost of COVID vaccines with no cost share for anyone who has coverage. That means that public health is no longer going to be able to provide COVID vaccine updated formulation to the general public. We have a very small allocation called the Bridge Access Program for people who have no coverage, or somehow don't fall under the ACA regulations if they're like a grandfathered plan and if they don't have vaccine coverage, that's the only adults that we can offer the updated COVID vaccination to. The Vaccines for Children's program, which does extend coverage to uninsured children, children who are Native American, Native Alaskan, and Medi-Cal, we can provide for that population of children, but nobody who has commercial insurance. So that is the biggest change in the way that we're doing things. That means that we're not going to be holding the big free clinics anymore for COVID vaccine. However, we will provide the flu vaccine because there is still some state general fund flu vaccine that is intended mostly for use for people who can't get it any other way, but we are allowed with that category of funding to provide a flu vaccine outreach event for the community. And so we will do that at the Together We Can Health Fair at the Italian Picnic Grounds on Saturday the 21st. Switching away from vaccines, I want to mention that, or actually still on the vaccine thing, I want to talk about some new tools that have come online since last fall, particular to RSV. So I think Supervisor Axe, you may have asked about RSV last season as we were going into this, and there were several things already in the development pipeline. Those have finished their way through all the testing, validation, and approval process. And at this point, there is already released an RSV vaccine. There's actually 2 different products available for that anybody age 60 and older, it's considered a shared decision recommendation that people are just advised to talk with their physician about whether or not they should get it. And then for the other vulnerable group, which is infants and newborns, 2 products. One of them is a long-acting monoclonal antibody product that can be given to the newborn right away after birth or any time within the first year of life to help protect them during RSV season. Young children under the age of 6 months really don't have a mature enough immune system to respond to a vaccination, so it's passive immunization with a monoclonal antibody. Or just last week, there was another RSV vaccine approved, this one to be given to a mother during the 3rd trimester of pregnancy. So the mother then forms antibodies, those cross the placenta and protect the newborn after birth. Very similar to the way we recommend pertussis vaccination now for those moms to get a pertussis booster during their 3rd trimester of pregnancy, and then those infants are protected for pertussis because those antibodies got to them through the placenta and again also through breast milk. So those are some new tools we didn't have before that'll hopefully help tamper the height of the RSV season this year. Switching over to COVID, again, the at-home self-test kits. There are still some in stockpile, and the U.S. government just restarted yesterday the covidtest.gov program where people can go online and order 4 free test kits to be delivered by U.S. Postal to their mailbox. And that program will be running, it's anticipated at least through the end of this calendar year. And then Public Health still has COVID self-test kits also available to hand out if needed. Many insurance plans are also still covering, for example, if you're on the county insurance and you get the Express Scripts, you can just go online with Express Scripts and they'll deliver 8 of them to your mailbox as well, because some of those coverage provisions extended beyond 6 months beyond the federal state of emergency ending. As far as expired test kits, when these were first being rolled out, they only had a limited expiry date because they just didn't know how long everything was going to work. Many of those test kits are on extended use now because as they keep testing them, they keep working and are valid, and they're validated. So the simple answer is, if you use a home test kit, ideally that's been stored well at room temperature, not in the glove box of your car when it's 110 degrees. As long as that control line shows up like it should, consider it a valid test. If your control line doesn't show up, throw that one away, get a different kit, and try it again. So rather than dumping them into the trash bin, if they're 2 days beyond the expiry date printed on the box, go ahead and give them a try. And as long as the control line shows up, you're good.
So those tests will work on all, newer variants and
Yes.
stuff? Okay.
They have been looked at to see whether they're detecting the new variants, and they are. They don't always, when symptoms are really mild, because the viral load can be too low to be detectable. So if that's the case, and you're symptomatic, we suggest retest again in 24 hours or 48 hours. If that happens and you test positive and you have symptoms, remember that treatments are available that lower the risk of hospitalization or severe outcomes, including death. And because there are still a lot of the government purchased treatments available, that program has not yet sunset. So that the state hotline, it's 1-833-422-4255 is still open. They are still offering, for people who can't get in to see their own doctor, a free telephone or video consultation to take your history, find out, what else you're taking, think about the drug-drug interactions, whatever needs to be, and then they can prescribe the antiviral treatments that you can pick up at a pharmacy free of charge.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Well, I just have a comment. I got the Moderna COVID the other day, but it's now called not Moderna, but Spikevax.
That's the trade name.
Vax, because I guess they're moving into other, types of, therapeutic
They are.
treatments with this RNA platform. So, anyhow, so I'm hoping my stock will go up. So,
Anybody from the public? Anybody from Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kerr. Okay, we're on to 2F, presentation.
We're gonna, Mr. Chair, I think we could use a break.
Sounds good. I'm sorry, I'm so interested.
Rolling.
Just roll along. So we will take a 10-minute break, come back, well, let's see what, the clocks are always weird. So let's come back at 8 after.
All right. 11:08.
And we'll work on 2F, presentation of Amador County version of the Motherlode Accessory Dwelling Guidebook and Resources.
Good morning. This is Krista Roussel with Amador Planning, and I have on Zoom Brandy Campbell-Wood, who's our representative from Baird and Driscoll, who's working with us on this project. So I can give kind of a brief description of what the Motherlode ADU is, and I think Brandy will be able to do the presentation that we have prepared. So overall, the Motherlode Accessory Dwelling Unit, or ADU, project is a collaborative effort between several of the other counties through the Motherlode, and it's to provide information regarding how residents can develop ADUs on their property, list some of the incentives, help connect those residents with resources that would assist with this process, and provide some deliverables for education of just showing how it is easier now with some of the new legislation from the state. So background for how we're funding this is the Department of Housing and Community Development did have the Regional Early Action Planning Grant, and $37,500 was allocated of what Amador County was awarded towards the Motherlode ADU project. I know that some of the other departments have also contributed their own amounts to make their own guidebooks, which are part of the project. So with this project, we would be creating a guidebook that goes through some of these processes and everything that I discussed, and then there'll also be a website, there's a calculator online, and then there's some other tools and informational items that I'm sure Brandy can go over as well. I guess that's all I really have. This was approved by you guys, and you reviewed it and made a resolution in January of 2021, so I guess that's what we've been working on with this.
Okay. You know, a question, as far as ADUs, do they have to pay the permitting fees? They don't, do they?
So there are permitting fees for the actual.
Not the full amount like a regular home, is it?
They are reduced. Some, depending on the square footage of the proposed ADU, sometimes they are eligible for exemption from some of the impact fees. Some of the fees are still flat for adding a residence, and then others are based on the square footage if they do go over. I believe it's 700 feet. But yeah, all of that information, as well as going over some of the more complicated aspects of our code specifically regarding ADUs, will be broken down in the guidebook, because a lot of the time currently people have to just come in person or call us, and it's a lot of information sometimes, and especially when people are just kind of trying to get a sense of what, even if they want to do it. So this will make it a lot more accessible for these residents to have that kind of information of what the permitting fees would cost, what the return on investment would be in the next 10, 20, whatever years. So that's,
okay.
Yeah.
Shall I jump in now, Krista?
Yeah. You're welcome to begin.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Brandy Campbell-Wood. I'm a principal at Community Planning Collaborative, formerly Baird and Driscoll. So even I mixed up our new name, but I'm really excited to be here. I've been working with Amador, Calaveras, Mariposa, and Nevada counties on this project for about a year. And before I kind of go over the resources that Krista already kind of discussed a little bit, I just wanted to step back a step and why this whole project started in the first place. And there's just been, since the state laws of 2019, it's gotten easier to build an ADU everywhere in the state. And we've found we've been working on ADUs for about a decade, so we're not new to this game. We just found over time what we've heard from residents, it's great because you develop a little home on your property, but then it changes with you over time. It can house your family, particularly as more and more folks move to multi-generational living, so grandparents to grandchildren can live on the same property. Folks who want to downsize as they get older because they don't want to upkeep a larger home, they often move into the ADU and then rent out or have family live in the main home. It can provide housing, long-term housing for local workers and smaller families who are looking for housing at the price point they need it when they enter the housing market. And as we know, that's getting harder and harder all the time. And it can improve property values as well. So there's a lot of benefits to making it easier for homeowners to build ADUs. And that's really what we shoot for with our resources. Can I go to the next slide? Thank you. Oh, yes, perfect. Thank you. And also we have found that our resources don't only help homeowners, but they really save money and time for staff. And that's one of the exciting things, because staff have so much on their plate, more than ever, really. There's so much to do and often fewer staff to do it. They don't usually have the time to figure out what's the best way to talk about all this information, or to really help people understand not just where they interface with jurisdictions, which is usually application, permit, inspections, but through the whole process, because it is a unique thing to sort of, I'm going to develop this small home on my property. There's a lot of work that we can help folks do just to get started, so they actually end up building that ADU, which then provides you all with more housing for your community. So for cities, more with resources for residents really means less staff time at the counter. So when folks have consistent information in all of these resources that are online and print, they know when to engage with staff, they know how to fill out a more complete application, or what to make sure that their contractor or architect are doing. And also folks are happier when they get consistent information. And because ADU law is frequently changing at the state level, it can be really challenging if you're a permit tech and balancing 25 things in your brain to remember all the minutia of ADU law. So having consistent information at the counter and across departments really helps folks know, give the same information about what are the rules, what are the development rules, what do they need to know if they have certain property issues, who do they need to talk to, and what might outside agency impacts be. Also, more ADUs means more RENA credit, and every jurisdiction in California needs that more than ever, as the RENA allocation numbers are pretty high. And also we found that consistent regional information super helps too. So some people live and work in different counties, and just having like a consistent messaging that's really helpful, that also just sort of subtly reiterates, like, staff are super here to help you. We're gonna break down this complicated information in a really easy way, but staff are here to help. So let's remember that. We wanna help you build this ADU, and here are the ways to do it. Next slide, please. So how we built Motherlode ADU, we started with doing a survey that we shared with all residents in the 4 counties. We also held some focus groups, one with real estate professionals and one with folks from the building and contracting side of things. The goal was really to understand, what do people care about the most? What resources might be the most helpful? What are certain topics that get really confusing? One thing we heard a lot was, there's a lot of confusion about what's an accessory dwelling unit and what's a junior accessory dwelling unit. So based on that, we changed a lot of our deliverables to make sure that that was super clear and prominent, and people could really understand that difference. We also ended up developing new stuff we'd never done before because we heard it would be helpful. One of the things was a trifold brochure that really summarizes the key points of ADUs, contact information, impacts to property value, et cetera, just so the real estate community could have it and kind of be advocates for ADUs, but also permit counters can have it. And it's a way lower printing cost than printing a whole guidebook. So I think it'll be beneficial to all the counties over time. After we gathered all that information and heard from community members and local professionals, we did a whole bunch of research. So we looked at all the ordinances. We talked with staff about development standards. We really tried to understand what are the county or regional level or state level rules about fire, what's happening with outside agencies, what would be the implications for sewer or septic, kind of try to get all that nitty gritty together. We also further interviewed staff and local professionals, particularly on trying to ground truth what construction costs might be to inform some of the tools that we developed. And then we had consistent review of all of our products along the way just to make sure we're getting it right. Next slide. So this all culminated into a bunch of print and online resources like Krista mentioned. The Motherlode ADU website really houses all of that. the guidebook, we did one for each county. So this was a pretty unique project, and we've worked on a lot of, projects where it was county-wide and it was all the jurisdictions in one county. We've never worked with 4 separate counties, so it was kind of new and fun and different, but each guidebook is completely customized to what we heard from staff and local community, and it has a whole bunch of information, and we like to think of it as like, it really helps the homeowner from first thinking about it all the way to move in. So the guidebook and the information is reflected on the website, breaks up each step, like how do I get started? What do I do when I think about my budget or a design? What is available out there? Is there any funding that could help out? Are there existing designs I could start from? How do I talk to a contractor? There's all of these things that go into the process, and we break it up into 6 main steps. And then that information is in the guidebook, it's in the website, and then there's a whole suite of resources that in between can help people get to the next step. Next slide, please. So we did a whole bunch of different handouts. So there's like a process graphic that at a glance summarizes, oh, this is how I get started. Here's who I contact. Here's the link to my permit application. Here's all the stuff I need to do, but I can look at it and it's one page and it's not overwhelming. We've also developed homeowner exercises. So we started this work out by doing a lot of focus groups with homeowners and really identified pinpointing what are the things that they get stuck on. And for those, we developed exercises. So if it's like, how do I hire, a professional? What questions do I ask? What information do I need to know about my property? What questions should I ask staff to understand if there's something special about my property or it's in a zone where I might have to change my design? So just really supporting them and prompting them to put all this information in one place so they have it at the ready and can really make informed decisions that save them time. We've also developed an ADU calculator for each jurisdiction. So we worked with county staff and then ground truth that information from local contractors. So basically, as a homeowner, I can go in and say, I want to build a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, this many square feet. You can play with the different inputs and change them, but it basically can help you estimate how much this might cost to build, how much your loan payback period times might be, and how much potential rent you could rent it at. So it's a really great place to help estimate budgets and to figure out, oh, if I make that design change, that's how it would impact my overall budget. We also developed a Can I Build tool, so folks can go to the website, plug in their address, and it'll tell them what they can actually build up to on their property, and it'll signify anything special if they're in a certain zone or if there's something that they're just a good thing to be aware of because it might change the development standards. We have a ton of floor plans. I want to say maybe 20 or 30 floor plan examples. We have prefab examples. A big scope item for this was, for this whole project, was to really try to put forth some local prefab examples. So we talked to pretty much any company that provides prefab to the 4-county region, and we're able to secure some of those plan sets and then put them in the guidebook on the website. We've also, one thing that we love to do, because you can say, come build an ADU, but sometimes it's nice to hear from a neighbor who's actually built it and what their experience was. So we found that that's super helpful for residents, and we did a call for submittals, heard from locals, and then from that developed some print and video stories. You can see their actual site plan. You could see, hear from them what was challenging, but also why it was worth it to build. And it just really helps folks understand, see themselves in being able to build it when they hear from their neighbors. We also worked with everyone to develop for information purposes only, contractor list. It's not vetted, but it's a really great place to start to know, oh, these are different types of contracting or design professionals in my region. It's a great place to start when you can see a list. It gets a little less overwhelming. Next slide. These are just some examples of stuff you'll find on the website. I spoke about the process handout that really summarizes a pretty intense process into 6 major steps, and it has kind of anything anyone would need to get started is in there. We also developed a development checklist. So this can be really helpful to staff as well as residents to capture all the major information about a property, and then just kind of keep track on any special rules or any kind of development standards that they'll have to consider when putting together their application. And then that's just an example of one of the homeowner exercises. You can print it out and use them with, just writing with pen or pencil, but we also have them as like digital PDF fill-in, so they can be used digitally as well. Next slide. And we also have a bunch of FAQs and glossaries. We really try to help people understand some of the plannery terms so they're empowered to make decisions, and we put it all in one place. Next slide. This is the example of the trifold brochure that came out of our focus groups. We really love it. We had a couple of public events already. People love it. It's just a real high-level overview of what ADUs are, what their benefits are, how to contact each county, and a couple of things that we heard from folks who were realtors about property value, et cetera. It's a really nice, if you had to give somebody one thing, I think that this is a great thing to give them to get them started. Next slide. We also, through this project, have developed a bunch of event materials that the 4 counties will share, including a bunch of information and activity boards and a banner. So they're kind of right now making their way between counties, which is super fun. We also have summaries of our survey and focus group online. And part of this project was also to do a regional affordable ADU incentives and strategies memo. What is that next step? Are there opportunities to provide fee waivers? Are there opportunities to develop loan products? What are the options for jurisdictions? So it features a lot of best practices from across the state. Next slide. And that's my presentation. So I'll pass it back to Krista and let me know if there's any questions.
Thank you, Brandy. Oh, excellent job. I wanted to also say, so I know we mentioned the 4 counties, so the other counties involved are Mariposa, Nevada, and Calaveras counties. And I wanted to do a shout out to Mariposa and Ben Goger with his housing team. Thank you guys for coordinating the contract and everything and some of the more administrative sides of stuff as far as that goes. And then the trifold, I did put some back on the back counter, and then they have been floating around the office. I have them up at the board office counter, as well as assessors, building and planning. And if anybody does have additional questions, they are welcome to reach out to me, and I can connect you with Brandy or answer you questions ourselves. So feel free to, reach out if you have any questions. And a lot of these materials are still in draft form, so they will be coming out as they are finalized and everything.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring up the calculator myself, and it's just initializing. It's just sitting there spinning. So we've still got some more work.
Yeah, we still are running through some of the stuff. I know that the website is, our county website does have links to the Motherlode ADU website as well. So please let us know if you have any issues with that as well, so we can be made aware of any issues.
Supervisors, any?
I have one. Is the guidebook out yet, or is it still being put together?
It's still being put together. So what was released with the items here, I believe, is a fairly polished draft still. And then we will, I believe, have copies of the guidebook at the main county counters, and maybe Brandy can help. I'm not sure exactly what we've worked out as far as how it's going to be made available.
The guidebook is finalized, but we're adding one additional revision. They are all going to Board of Supervisors. If there was any comment that required an edit, we would make that edit. But the copy you have is the final one. For seeing any additional edits, once we have a stamp of approval, this thing is ready to print. We will print some and ship them off your way, and then it'll be available digitally on the website in a couple versions, one to view in full color, but we always provide a black and white one that can be printed at someone's home in case they want to print any part of it out.
The only other comment I had, I think it was last 2 pages, 132, 133, I think those should be like pages 2 and 3. I think they're that important about stating the differences between the ADU and the JADU, and then the 1 through 6 on the process. And I think it's important for people to realize that These are for 30 days or longer.
Any other questions for the supervisors?
Oh.
Okay, we'll open it up to the public.
Hello, Jim Rooney, Amador County Assessor. I had a few questions that I'd like to ask. And one of them is, these ADUs, what is the smallest size parcel that an ADU can be put on? Is that something that they know right now?
I don't remember seeing any. I imagine there is, but maybe Krista might be able to answer that. I never saw a size limit.
So there's no size limit for the size of the parcel. It just needs to be sufficient to meet whatever required setbacks are, and then also whatever services would be needed to be provided to support that new build.
Okay. Going along with that question, can an ADU tie into the existing septic if it's sized appropriately to handle both?
I'm not precisely sure because they would have to work that out with environmental health. I believe that the preference is that they're separate, but again, environmental health would be the authority on that. So when people are building an ADU, they still have to go through the standard permitting process, which includes submitting plans to the building counter. It gets routed to the various departments, and we check it for setbacks, adequate parking access, septic or sewage waste disposal, that kind of thing. So it's still routed through that standard process. It's just flagged as being an accessory dwelling unit.
Thank you.
Okay, also, now this is a presentation for county ADUs, is that correct? This doesn't affect, or this isn't something that is being directed to the cities right now, or is the cities a separate issue?
So the cities have their own codes regarding ADUs. I know that some of them did state that they were interested in getting, I guess, access to the calculator for things.
Okay.
But yeah, the guidebook is specifically for the unincorporated.
Okay, but this will probably take place in the cities too, I would imagine. Are you saying no, the cities? Or
Like building the?
Well, okay, my concern of this is, I was watching the presentation, and the assessors throughout the state have had discussion on this because they're going to be hard to assess. But that's part of the deal. You know, we have tasks we have to complete, which can be hard. But when I saw some of the presentation, I had concerns that I would like to address that I hope you can understand. And one of them is, when these ADUs go into areas that there are small lots, they don't seem to know what's the smallest parcel one of these can go on. This creates an interesting situation sometimes. If there's an area like Mace Meadows or Comanche where people are putting additional ADUs in their backyards, and I saw they said this could be for elderly, and I understand that, or for workers. You have a bunch of ADUs in a neighborhood with workers, and now you have the cars on the street, and your neighbors are wondering, you know, how did we get congestion here? I think there could be congestion issues. I don't think that means that it's going to improve local property values. It does say, I understand assessments will go up on the properties that put a ADU on it because they have new construction. But if it causes congestion and it causes additional cars on the street, people in the neighborhood, I'm not so sure I would agree with it's going to improve property values. It may, like I say, increase assessed values. So something I would, I hope it's addressed. When you have also, I know there have to be setbacks, but I think this is something that the county should really be right on top of, that it doesn't decrease our quality of life by putting too many things in a concentrated area. You know, it's funny, today I was just looking at the Comanche area. I wanted to see how many vacant lots there were compared with how many lots that had homes on it. There's an awful lot of vacant lots out there. The Mace Meadows area, there's an awful lot of vacant lots up there. And I'm wondering sometimes, why are we putting, I understand why we're putting ADUs on some properties, because somebody has an elderly parent that they'd like to take care of. I get that. And if somebody has a 5-acre parcel, I get that too, there's an ADU. But when it's a 2/10 of an acre parcel in Castle Oaks and somebody puts an ADU on it, does that improve the quality of the area? And
I don't know how much that, Jim, how much latitude we have, because I think the state has, you know, kind of pushed this down to the county level. So, you know, we don't really, you know.
Well, I hope we can express concerns about some of these things, because I know it already has been approved, but does the county, will the county or the cities have any jurisdiction on saying, hold on, that, you know, 0.15 acres, a little bit small to be putting an ADU, or do you have no say in it? If you have no say in it, I guess.
Well, that's why we put our own ordinance together already, because we didn't want the state to have the say-so.
Yeah. All right, this thing concerns me. I think it could turn into a mess, and I have a lot of questions too. So anyway, I'll keep an eye on things as you will too. Thanks.
Any other supervisor questions? Okay, now, excuse me, back to the public. Anybody out of the public? Okay, we have somebody on Zoom. Oh, sorry.
Hi. Oh,
Hold on just for a second. We got somebody in the public.
I'm Paul Bramwell. I'm a builder and pioneer. I did come down to the county 6-8 weeks ago, asked about an ADU. One of the restrictions they said was they require you to put a 2-bedroom septic in if you cannot attach to the existing. And some of the ADUs being smaller, 1-bedroom, you're still required to do a 2-bedroom septic system. So my impression from the health department was that that would be something that needed to be addressed from the county at some point, is to reduce the size of the septic systems for smaller ADUs. Just want to make that comment.
Thank you. Okay, Zoomer?
Ms. Grambois, please go ahead when ready.
hi, my name is Sierra Grambois. I am a resident of Amador County, but I also am an attorney with the California Housing Finance Agency. And I just wanted to voice my support of this program, the thoroughness of the details. In my line of work, I've seen ADUs are confusing. The legislation is ever changing on what you can build, how you build it, funding, resources. So I just wanted to express support, especially coming up in that my agency is listed in the guidebook for funding, and I appreciate that that is input. As you may know or you may not know, we were just allocated $25 million towards ADU program again. There's no timeline as to when that money will be distributed, but it is on the horizon. And yeah, my comments mostly just support of this. And if I can be of any assistance, let me know.
Thank you. Anybody else on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Any other questions? Okay, that was presentation only. Thank you very much. We're on to 2G, General Service Administration discussion regarding grant application for park improvements.
Good morning, Chairman Brown and Supervisors.
Morning. Morning.
Karen Warburton, Senior Administrative Analyst, General Services.
Go ahead and bring the mic closer to you a little bit.
Sorry about that.
Oh, not a problem.
Did you hear who I was?
Yes.
Okay. So first thing that I have to present to you today is a memo regarding and a resolution regarding this grant allocation that I was able to locate. It was brought to my attention that Pioneer Park needs some help, and this particular allocation would be set aside for that, and also some improvements to the tennis court in Fiddletown Park. It requires that we have you complete and agree to the resolution that was attached and agree to the authorized representative that was indicated there. I believe it's Chuck, our chief administrative officer. Did you have any questions, or need me to clarify anything, or?
Yeah, I think these funds can only be spent in county parks. Is that existing? Is that correct?
It is for existing county parks, but it's for capital outlay projects, so it's for new features within the park itself.
Existing parks.
Existing parks, correct.
Okay.
So is all the money of this going up to Pioneer Park, or is any allocated to Fiddletown?
So the total allocation is $400,000. We don't yet have an exact total on what the requirements would be to tear out and replace the tennis courts, but that's the focus, the main focus for the first part of this grant project or grant allocation, and that would be for both parks. And then in addition to that, there's a desire to add a tennis court to Pioneer Park. So there would be 2 tennis courts in Pioneer Park and replacing the one that's in Fiddletown as well.
And then also making those pickleball.
Correct. So the striping that would go on would be
That's the biggest input that I've received is to allocate and capable of making all these tennis courts capable of pickleball.
right. And each tennis court would amount to 2 pickleball courts. So we would end up with a total of 6 at these 2 parks.
Not sure we should be supporting pickleball with all the injuries that senior citizens are getting now.
You've seen injuries? I saw one scraped finger.
We had somebody who,
Supervisor Brown, I was talking to Richard about, since I'm a veteran of orthopedics down at UC Davis, they sent out a newsletter along with a pledge card, you know how that goes, but 30% of the orthopedic surgeries to senior citizens at UC Davis last year, in the last fiscal year, was directly attributable to pickleball injuries.
we know somebody personally who tore all of his tendons in one foot, one ankle.
Well, it's the senior population in this county that's kind of driving pickleball, I think, primarily.
Yeah.
So, we can, make sure
Pickleballer
that we're
beware.
that we're surveying the public properly, that's the best way to spend these funds, and I don't mind doing that, but, I think.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have Dr.
We will have
Kerr
tennis
back.
courts, and I'm assuming tennis courts do similar things
Yeah.
to the body that pickleball does.
I think when you get older, you need some exercise, but the problem is some days in the pursuit of exercise, it doesn't always work out too well, but I think you gotta take the exercise and the possible problems over the ladder, which is not good.
Was the
Sitting around doing nothing, this doesn't work.
Was the lighting at Pioneer Park included in?
We would like to include the lighting,
Okay.
but because we don't know there's a big, long sort of wish list of things.
But it's on that wish list.
Correct, and
Those
so,
are the highest priorities.
right, so the intention is just to go down the list and
Okay.
elect the things that we can within the $400,000 that.
I got it, yeah.
Yeah, the money will probably get eaten up pretty well, because it's probably a prevailing wage project, I imagine. And that's real pricey. One thing I'd wonder about too, up at Fiddletown, there's a basketball court there that could use just maybe a little bit of love, possibly.
Okay,
I know they got one backstop there talking to kids, they don't like using it, it's real stout, and it's got a steel backboard, and I guess you throw the ball and it bounces back once you take your head off it, or their head off, and they'd like to see that replaced if possible.
okay, we'll add that to the list.
Yeah, because you can paint a pickleball court on the basketball court, I think, too.
Oh, is that right?
Well, they did it at Bryson Park in Cedar Creek.
Oh, okay.
I noticed that a lot of the funding now seems to be going to District 3 and District 5. It's interesting who's the chair and vice chair.
Since those are the county parks, yes, it is.
Yeah.
Well, where's there another county
There's other
park, Richard, we can put some money there?
The supervisor for it, not to mention the firehouse and the big road construction. And this recently done road construction, but
Well,
not that we're keeping score.
there are, regional impact fees from the county that would go to like the park in Ione.
People do a lot of walking on Martin Lane. I mean, come on.
I don't think your constituents like you making Martin Lane into a park.
Okay. Back to, actually, any other questions for the supervisors?
We need a resolution to approve.
Yeah, I haven't gone out. Let me out to the public for questions. Anybody on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay. Do I have a motion to accept this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Hello.
Oh, we have somebody on Zoom.
Hi, yeah, this is Jared Vassar.
Yes, sir.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to make a recommendation to, for the upper field. Just talking with Little League and their need for expansion for their juniors, and also being able to utilize it for girls softball as well. I think it would do a lot of good to be able to put some love into that upper field, the softball field.
Right, that's, part of this money we're doing is the lighting, so I allow that to work. What is your recommendation for the upper field?
I believe Little League will be able to talk on that a little bit better than me as far as cost or what infrastructure would need to be added to make it playable for juniors, for, tournaments, to make it worthwhile for everybody. So I'm hoping somebody is on Zoom that can actually touch on that from Little League. But yeah, they'd be able to talk about that better than me.
Well, we just had a hand come up.
Go ahead, Ms. Gunn, when ready.
Hi, sorry. Took a minute to figure out how to get unmuted. Yeah, I am actually the president of Amador County Little League East, meaning that our territory is Pioneer, Pine Grove, and Jackson. And we have been struggling for several years now with our fields. We're just our program is getting bigger and bigger as more and more children sign up, and we have Molly, lower and upper, and we have Imee Field, and we have Mike Clark, which is kind of a tiny field that we put T-ball on. But we do not have a juniors field. And for reference, the juniors field is like the big league field. Juniors is our oldest age in the league. So that is a 90-foot baseline with a 285-foot fence, and we don't have one of those. So we were just kind of hoping, working with adult softball and girls softball and Little League, that you would be able to set aside some of these funds so that we could make Pioneer Park a usable field for all of our programs. That would actually even make it so that we could host tournaments at that field, which right now our only field that we can hold a tournament at is Lower Molly, but that is only for the 12-year-old division. So like Jared said, we were just hoping to make this field a really great usable field for all of our programs, and actually get an entire division for our Little League, which right now travels to Hobbs in McCollum Hill. That is our only juniors field, and it's not even in our league. It's in the Cal National Calaveras League, but they're generous enough to work with us. So it would be really great to have something that was actually in our boundaries that our kids could use. And Pioneer Park is kind of the only one that fits all the criteria.
So what is it you're asking for Pioneer Park?
Jared would be able to help with that. It does need a lot of work. It's a very rocky field. It would need dirt. It would need grass. It would need power poles moved out of the outfield, which are right now shorting the outfield fence line a little bit. Dugouts. there's kind of a lot. There is some infrastructure there to work with, so it's not starting from scratch, but it hasn't seen any love for quite some time.
Well, you know, I see one instance that there wouldn't be a ability to put grass on that field, so that would be part of a problem.
That's not something, I don't know if that would make or break any of our plans to use it. Even if we could only use it for practicing purposes, it would make it better than what we have going now with families in Pioneer traveling all the way to Hobbs once they reach the juniors level. But that's something that Jared and I kind of wanted to collaborate on and see what we could do.
Okay, well, I wouldn't mind hosting a meeting and, you know, getting together and having a conversation about this in the future so I can advise county.
Yeah, that would be really great.
Okay, if you wouldn't mind emailing me, I would appreciate it, and we can get something coordinated.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, another thing to remember is that this is not the only funding. We've got Karen working on this right now, so.
I understand. We've got a motion by Supervisor Crew, second by Supervisor Forster, and calling for the vote. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 5-0. Thank you very much, Karen, and keep finding that money, please.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
I'm wondering if we can just move forward in the agenda to the next item I'm on for, 2I, since I'm here.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. So this one is having to do with the concept of conducting a feasibility study for placement of either a fueling station or a production plant, of hydrogen fuel, or both, on county property. We were approached by ACTC and Amador Transit to talk about a grant that they are receiving through allocation, and they are going to need to transition the Amador Transit fleet to zero emission vehicles. So there are some issues with them considering electric, one being the time it takes to actually charge those vehicles, and the other being a location in which they can do it. And so that when they approached us, they wanted to know if there was some way that the county could put some sort of infrastructure in for them to generate hydrogen and fuel up at that location. And so what we wanted to ask is if we could do a feasibility study for specifically the Carbondale property was mentioned here on this memo, for seeing if that is even something we can do.
You know, I'd have a question on that. As far as production facility, it makes sense, but as far as a fueling facility, it's a long ways down there.
It is, but it's not too far.
It's too far.
It's still doable from the sense that, you know, they can fuel up, get back to the location where it sits overnight, and then go the next day. The hydrogen fuel vehicles go a lot further than, say, an electric vehicle, which is part of the reason why it seems.
Well, a question I'd wonder about, I don't know what type of manufacturing you would take. You know, is it like some type of the conversion process? But I mean, could something like that go out there on the Wicklow Way property maybe?
Yeah, it's electrolysis, so it'll need water and then electricity, and it will generate from the water.
There's minimal, I don't think there's that much water down there in Carbondale property, is there?
There's no water at the Carbondale property. So
there's water, but not much.
It's one of the things that we would have to look into, right? And that's why we need a feasibility study.
Well, I mean, I think Wicklow property might be a lot better location. I mean, I mean, a big chunk of the county can be there in minutes.
So my understanding is that John Gedney is here from ACTC. Maybe he can shed some light on what we're talking about here.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chair. John Gedney, ACTC. So yeah, as Karen mentioned, we had a good conversation about this possibility, taking advantage of some funding that's available to the region from the state over the next 4 or 5 years. And Karen points out the mandates that are coming. You have some mandates to have public fleets transition over to zero-emission vehicles. So that's why we're here to talk about this. And the particular question about Wicklow being a possibility, we were just wondering if there were potential locations in the county that would be a good site to establish a scaled facility. You could scale this from a basic refueler at first, if you did choose hydrogen, that is. A refueler at first with a fueling station, if you will, and then that can be scaled up to a full production model. And it would all follow under the criteria that the grant allows.
Yeah, I was just thinking to really be viable, I mean, you know, I don't know if that fuel source is viable. I think it's still kind of up in the air from what I'm hearing people that there's problems with hydrogen. The molecules are real small and they penetrate steel and can cause issues. It's kind of hard to store it maybe. But if it is viable, I think you'd want something just to be able to get vehicles there. Otherwise, you're having people drive clear on the Carbondale. From right here, you're probably talking, what, Richard probably know, 20 minutes at least.
I don't know a whole lot about this. I mean, does it have to be produced off-site and transported in, or do they produce it on-site? I don't.
Well,
It'll be produced on site.
Can be.
Yeah.
But who's gonna manage it then? The county or ACTC and AT?
I think we probably look to a third party.
Hey, John, have you actually looked into any vendors that sell the electrolysis equipment? You know, there's companies like Bloom Energy in the Bay Area, and then there's, I forget a few others, and they, from my understanding, they have them embedded in like places like Google and things like that, so they may be relatively safe to operate there. I guess what they're selling them on is the ability to have on-demand electricity, because you store the hydrogen, then you use it in a fuel cell to generate electricity when your power goes out. So it's, instead of a generator, it's a generator at that point. And so we may be able to even put it on, I mean, some of those lots in the Martell area might also be usable, and I don't think it's a big footprint either, so.
I think that's why we want to do a feasibility study, so that we can look into all of these possibilities.
Yeah.
And also to get back to Supervisor Oneto's point about the location, it can be any county property really. It could be even the airport, which is right there, so.
And that's part of the question is, can this feasibility study kind of be general and you know, any entity could use that feasibility study to figure out if they can do that, you know, have either production or storage anywhere in the county. You know, can that survey be done in that aspect, you know, just as a broad term, you know, survey, so it encompasses a lot of different areas other than just Carbondale.
I think it would have to.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking for guidance from you for, is where we should focus our efforts, if you're willing to do that.
I like the Carbondale spot because we own it, but I think it should be a more central location. We own Wicklow too, but Wicklow hasn't even gone through the master plan yet. Airport location, do we have enough property there that might be suitable? It's more of a central location.
That'd probably work too.
And the water and the power is already there.
Well, if you can get it from the water agency.
Well, we can just run a garden hose from.
From General Services.
So, I don't think these things are that big. You know, I think when you start looking at it, you're not talking about a big footprint. It's gonna be maybe a quarter size of this room.
Gentlemen, this is just a first pass to see if the board is even willing to look at a feasibility study on county property. That was
Scrap
ACTC's
Carbondale, just put
first,
county on.
yeah, their first hit was to say, is the county interested on county property? That's for you to weigh in today on, and that's really it. If not, then if you're not thinking that any county property should be targeted for this, then ACTC will look at a different location, okay?
But, we're still, there is county property all over the county. So wherever else we need to look at, would be something that I would want a feasibility study to be looking at.
I think that in the study, we could focus on things like what's the minimum size it needs to be and how much would generate in a day, how much water we need, and whether that can be supplied, those types of things. And then we can possibly look at specifics where county-owned property, where it would make sense to put something like that, if at all.
And if there's expandability and all of those.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, if you come up with some grant money to look into that, I mean, I don't see a downside to it.
I think we're ready to give direction to staff.
Okay.
Just to add, hydrogen, from everything I read, is going to transform. We're going to move to a hydrogen economy, not a electric car economy. I mean, there'll be electric cars, but they're going to run on hydrogen.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that now, but certainly things
It's
that
gonna
I've
probably happen in the next 5 years. I mean, that's the time, that's the horizon. I think it's much quicker than what people are realizing. That's how we're gonna make green steel, and there's all kinds of uses, and it all comes down to hydrogen.
My understanding too, in terms of paying for the feasibility study, is that it would be coming from the ACTC grant or allocation that you're getting.
The grant will allow for the feasibility study.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't know if it's a panacea. I know a lot of people are working on it. I was talking to a pretty sharp engineer a while back, and he says, there's potential, but it's got some real big problems if they can get by them. It's just kind of like it's a fuzzy-friendly thing to deal with as far as that, that molecule being so small and going through steel, it's like the pipelines, like they were talking about, like the natural gas pipelines, they can only put maybe 10%. Otherwise, they have problems, I guess, major problems with it.
Well, there's other problems, that burns with no color. So there's no color when hydrogen burns. So it's kind of an interesting.
I don't know, the Hindenburg had a lot of color.
It had other materials in there too.
It doesn't hurt to check it out.
Nope, it does not.
So I say go forward and do well.
Any public comment? Any Zoom comment?
Yeah, also the conversion of woody biomass, one of the products is hydrogen, to convert wood material into hydrogen. And the governor has this plan, I guess, for managing the forests, and supposedly RCRC signed off on it. So that would be something else, in addition to things like mass timber and soil amendments, would be something like that. So
I'm behind anything the governor signs off on.
well, it's like I said, I'll show you all the articles. There's countless.
Okay, well, I think we've got a consensus here to go forward and prosper, and let's go have fun.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we will go back to
2H.
2H, yes.
I just had one thought too. Would this facility be available to private parties?
Could be.
That's what the feasibility study's for.
I think that's something we would have to determine with the number of buses, and then also county medium and heavy-duty equipment will also need to convert to some kind of zero emissions at some point. So we could take a look at our own county fleet and determine if that's a direction we want to go in as well.
Yeah, that's the question. I guess not trying to throw a monkey wrench, but just thinking, well, could it be made available to private parties? Because I mean, if it does happen, or would that be just maybe a private party put one in somewhere else on, you know, a sister type operation? Okay.
Okay, 2H, General Services Administration, Animal Control Fee Schedule.
That's what I've been waiting for.
Afternoon, Evan Jacobs, Director of Animal Control. We discussed on August 22nd some fees with some of the cities, and so on that day you guys liked just an idea of what other counties are doing. So I researched 8 different counties and cities within the area, on our area. And so there are a couple recommendations. Overall, we are slightly lower than all of the cities or counties. And so we have made some recommendations. If you want, I could go line by line, or if you had questions, I'd be more than willing to answer those.
Board Supervisors, questions?
Yeah, I've got a few. It's like, one thing I was looking at was it talks about in the I guess I'll go off the memo. On item 4, you're looking at raising fees to 40, 80, and 120. I think you should probably, if they get a longer license, the fees should drop a little bit maybe. So maybe looking at 40, 70, 90, or 100. I think that'd make a little more sense. And also, it has a higher fee for working ranch or show dogs. I thought, well,
Yep, that was my mistake. It should have actually been $10 cheaper, so it should be $35 a year. The reason why we wanted to recommend intact animals, not working dogs or show dogs as without a discount, is because that's where we get accidental litters, because people will let their dogs roam off property, and then intact animals do what intact animals do, and then we have accidental litters through the county. So we can definitely look into that, but the reason why we didn't offer a discount regarding intact animals is because of that, and to try and deter folks from having an intact animal and then trying to stop accidental litters and getting those animals spayed and neutered.
well, you know, it seems like, I'm sure some of you probably legally can't do, but it seems like pit bulls, I don't know if they have that, if they're out, people don't take care of their dogs, that many puppies, but it seems like you always have a lot of them up to pound, more so.
German Shepherds, Pit Bulls, and Huskies are the average right now, locally and state and national. That's what everybody has.
So I'm sure you can't charge more on a particular dog, but.
Well, that is one thing that we did. 2 cities do a highly adoptable breed dogs. That'll help recoup some of the costs on the animals. So perfect example, we just had 2 boxer puppies come in. They went and got adopted within less than 2 hours of being on the adoption floor. Those fees obviously, or those cost more than $300, but it is a way, if we get a certain type of highly adoptable breed dog, why we went that route.
I didn't realize this, but you actually license vicious dogs?
Well, that is something I found out with looking at all of these 8 counties and cities. So 4 of them, it was Tuolumne, El Dorado County, give me one second. Stanislaus County and Stockton. They all had potentially dangerous dog and vicious dog designations.
What is a vicious dog?
So it's a state designation. It's got to meet certain criteria that we work with county council and we go to the courts. Potentially dangerous dog there's 2 really main things. 2 separate incidences of self-defense in 36-month period. So if you're walking down the street and you have to throw a stick or yell at a dog because you perceive it acting as aggressive, so 2 types of that within the 36-month period, or potentially if a dog bites and it causes injury to a person, then we have to file on that. So it's a state designation that we do follow, but it takes a lot of staff time. We're talking 15 to 20 hours total, and that's without county council's involvement. But 4 of these cities and counties had this fee, and that's a way for them to recoup, because it does take a lot of staff time to put a case together and then go to court.
Well, second one I could see possibly depending on circumstances, but the first one, I mean, I'm scared of that chair right now. I'm gonna throw my pen at it.
That's why there's got to be two documented incidences within
Well, I threw my
6
pen at
months.
that chair twice. And I
It's
documented
got to
it.
be within a separate incident.
Yeah, I don't see that. I mean, if you get neighbor feuds, and I don't like that, that neighbor who has that chair, and I'm gonna complain about that chair attacking me. Well, okay, yeah, I can't support that.
On number 5,
Yes, sir.
surrender fee,
Yes.
that's a pretty good percentage of your business too, isn't it, surrenders? I'm worried about if we raise the price, we're gonna end up picking them up wandering on the street.
I don't have the data. Anecdotally, yes, I do think we are seeing a
Like
lot.
20 or 25%, I've heard.
Possibly, I'd have to really look at it. We are seeing just people abandon animals, but yes, the reason why we went to the 55 is because that was the average across all 8 of these cities and counties. So it'll increase that, and then some of them had a litter fee, which helps. So that way they're not having to spend, even if it was $30 and you had 10 cats or 10 puppies, they can't. Most people can't pay the $300. That's why you do the litter fee as well.
Is that why you kept the impound fees more modest than the bigger counties?
Correct. The first time it was, hey, mistakes happen, or the land or the bug guy leaves the gate open, right? Second and third, we upped significantly compared to what we have now, because now we're, wanting you to correct the issue. That's why we did keep that first one so low, is, to help with those types of mistakes.
Do you think we could bump the second and third times as to more of a penalty? Because if they picked it up the first time, they're probably gonna pick it up second and third time, but they're gonna get a more severe penalty.
We can easily do that, yes.
We went maybe to 25, 100, and 200. I mean, that's more competitive with the larger counties too. I don't think we always need to be in line with what Calaveras is doing. I'm not hearing any opposition to that.
I was thinking about it, kind of.
Well, I want people to get a penalty for, if they don't worry about letting their dogs out, or cat, more dogs than anything, I guess.
Yeah, I'm kind of neutral on it. I'm not in love with it, but I can probably live with it.
Yeah.
One thing, getting back to the ranch dogs, unaltered. What are you proposing price on that?
35 instead of 45.
How about just 30, like a regular dog?
We can do that.
And as far as, I don't know how the board feels about the potentially vicious dog, but to me, it seems kind of like it's just, I don't know, it's awful subjective.
Could I just add a little background to that? So it's not, on that one, that determination of a potentially dangerous dog or a vicious dog, it's not made by animal control. It's made by the court. So before a dog gets that classification, there has to be a hearing or a stipulation by the dog owner that that dog meets that criteria. And then one of the requirements is that that dog needs to be licensed. And so then that dog that's been determined by the judge to be potentially dangerous would have to pay that fee to get licensed.
Okay, there's some more of a basis then.
Yeah, what he just said is exactly what I was gonna come up here to talk to you about, Brian, Supervisor Annetto, but the lift to getting there, takes a lot more resources from our end.
Okay.
And so usually those cases involve dogs escaping, running at large, and then, going after the neighbor who's walking their dog, and then they get in a big fight, or, something like that.
Okay.
There's happened. Not all of those aren't all provoked, but,
Right, and then attacking livestock, 2 separate incidences, and then once it's a state designation.
Yeah,
Criteria.
that's better. I'll withdraw my objection.
So right now, I've got $100 for the second offense and $200 for the third offense for impound fees within 1 year, and dropping the unaltered ranch show dog to 30. Any other changes in the fee schedule?
Wait, how much was impound fees?
So we proposed 25 for the first 7.
No, what John just said.
Well, Supervisor Forrester recommended 25, 100, and 200.
Yeah, I thought you said 300. I was going, oof.
No, 200.
Okay.
I'm just
What he
looking
said.
at it as more of a deterrent. 25 may not be much of a deterrent, and then they might just let it happen again. Well, boom, they get hit the second time.
Okay.
If we're gonna raise that part, should we keep the surrender fee down?
So the surrender fees, Supervisor Crew, those are representative of the 8, the 6 and 2 cities that we looked at, just an average. That's where those numbers came from. So it's really up to the board what you guys want to do. I tend to agree with you that if you're gonna, if somebody's conserved and they need to release their dog, or they're going to the military, they need to release their dog, those are justifiable reasons. I don't think, we don't have a lot of owner surrenders that are just wanting to get rid of their pet. There's usually a good reason for it. But you may, I don't know that you're gonna find them on the street though either, if they're.
Yeah, most reasons why folks are surrendering is due to an unforeseen circumstance, an eviction.
Real life.
Yeah.
It's really up to you guys what you want to do.
But if there's no other choice and they're going to Walmart to buy something. Just
You got a
trying to avoid
recommendation?
Another problem.
Yeah, you got a recommendation?
I would leave it at the current fee since we're raising the impound fees.
We don't have one a new, and I didn't put it in red, but the owner surrender with a litter is a little different. So,
I would propose maybe 45 or 50, just so then that way, if you have 5 kittens or puppies.
Okay.
Are you good with 50?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything we can do to mitigate that.
so Lee, and what's the owner surrender?
30, we're gonna keep it at
30, 30 and 50 is the recommendation then. Okay?
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, any other input? Out to the public? Anybody on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay. So, do you have your direction, sir?
Well, we need you to adopt the fee schedule then,
Okay.
With the changes?
with the changes that we've noted here today.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Supervisor Forrester? Okay, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 5-0. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Appreciate all the input. Okay, we are on to 2J. Review and possible approval of the Board of Supervisor meeting minutes.
Okay, I have one change on a vote on page 3 on the consent agenda. Action, I think, should have been 401, not 410. Supervisor Onetto abstained.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 5-0. This meeting is adjourned until Tuesday, October 10th at 9 a.m. Closed session begins at 8:30.